Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, no, wait, can't do that one. Not, no, no. Okay, how about this? Good evening, Skyfarers, and welcome to Aethercat. No, that's taken too. God damn it. Okay, all right. Here we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Old Town Throwdown. Down. In the red corner, we have my illustrious guest, Taran Blood God Birk. Taran, say hello.
Hello, hello.
And in the blue corner, we have Shane Simulacra Lambert. What's going on, Shane? How are you?
I'm great, Barker. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm your guest. I'm sorry, I'm your host tonight. I am Matthew Very Mid Barker. Great to be here. We are going to be talking about all things LVO, Vegas, the tournament, all the happenings, all the wheelings and dealings. It's going to be a great show. You heard my illustrious guests introduce themselves. Taran had a great showing, and so did Shane at the LVO, the tournament, the Las Vegas Open in Vegas. So first, what I want to do is I just want to check in with you guys and see how you enjoyed Vegas on the whole. It's a nice little trip. It's about 4 hours from where we are in SoCal, give or take. So Taran, what did you do for fun other than play Warhammer and roll dice?
Well, I think like the people I went to Vegas with was like just amazing, right? It's my first LVO. I just started the hobby this year, and I went with Matt. He's been on this channel a couple times. He's a BOC player, and then we also had AOS coach tag along for most of our adventures. So we went to a speakeasy. We went to a bar. Um, we just hung out. The convention was also great at LVO. It was really nice seeing like all of like the work painters can do and be like, wow, I should really paint my army. Or at least I should do it to that quality. Um, Looking through the FLG boxes was really fun. They had no idea how to price some things in a very good way. Like if you wanted to start an army, that was your day. Someone who got 22 bliss barbs for $5. Like if you wanted to start gits, it was like it just give you like 2 units of squigs and it'd be like $10.
Yeah, you're
Um,
practically saving money going LVO at that point.
yeah, honestly, you could just buy everything there and sell it in like your local crowd. Um, Playing the games was fun. Meeting a lot of the people, especially like with the AOS community, like you kind of most of the time know the people in your state. People are coming to your local RTTs, your GTs, but there's a lot of people you talk to online. And meeting those people, interacting with those people, and meeting like your new opponents, having a blast with them, especially like when your game isn't as so serious. You know, your two players who like just want to have fun. Like
Yeah.
game five, they were just like, let's have fun. So we had a blast. So yeah, that's doing Las Vegas things. What I did in Vegas.
Was that the first time you've been to Vegas?
No, I actually went for the Frontline Gaming teams
Oh, that's
just a
right.
couple months
Yeah.
ago, and it was kind of the same thing exactly happened. Just doing Vegas in Vegas. It's very fun still.
Check out Old Town Throwdown TV's video on the Vegas team's review if you want some more information on that. So it sounds like you had a lot of time enjoying the social scene with everybody and checking out all the other things at the Las Vegas Open other than the Warhammer tournament. So that's great. Shane, what about you? What'd you do for fun in Vegas? Is there anything to do for fun in Vegas that you that
It's
you
not a whole lot. I think you just go, you roll some dice, and you go to bed. It's not that much.
what was your experience, homie?
My experience was a lot more tame this time. So Terrence said it was his first time. This would be my second time. This time finally getting the 4-1 that I've been just praying to get ever since I
Mhm.
started getting into this game. Last year I went 3-2. It was a good show, but definitely proud of the 4-1 this time. But as for the experience in Vegas, I was a lot more tame this year actually. Last year I did all the drinking, all the gambling, all the whatever dancing you
Yeah.
can in Vegas that you can do. This year I focused on the competition. It was like you said, it was the send off for the GHB. I was taking it super seriously. I'm thinking about lists. I'm looking at matchups. Really trying to remember my rules because that's like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Um, but Saturday or it was Friday night. Yeah, we went out. Taryn, I was with Taryn and a big group of people such as the Noog AOS coach, whole bunch of people, and that was
Just
a
name
lot of
drop
fun.
in there. Yeah,
Gotta drop them. But other than that, I didn't drink a whole lot. I maybe had a couple drinks after my round of games because it's a long day of Warhammer. You gotta put down something to um, get the night
calm the
going,
nerves.
keep the
Yeah,
energy up.
yeah,
Nah, I wasn't too nervous this tournament actually, but definitely needed a little pick me up for if you're gonna go party after 9 hours of Warhammer.
totally.
But no, the people are great. I mean, the Warhammer community. I've only been a part of it for like a year and a half, and some of these people are already some of my best friends. I hang out with them and talk to them daily. I was just at Matt's house last night. Uh, Tom was there. Greg was there. It was a grand old time. We practiced in the new GHB, which, by the way, I mean, we'll get into it, but the new GHB is fantastically fun. Uh,
I think my invite for that game night at the Nuges is still in the mail, so I'll wait. I'll wait for
yeah,
it.
it was a little bit of a planning.
I'm just
Sometimes
kidding.
is an issue.
No, that's great. I'm glad you had a good time. You still had some fun with friends. You were able to get out and enjoy the town a little bit, but I can understand going for the business and really taking it seriously. Uh, for myself, I had a little bit of I guess, an in between there. I have been really getting into the nerdy aspects of blackjack a lot, probabilities and potential outcomes. Um, Definitely not at the level of counting cards. Hope maybe that'd be a cool skill to learn, but just really getting into some of the more probabilistic outcomes of various hands. So I played a lot of blackjack. I ended up doing fairly okay. I think over the weekend I was plus $600, which is pretty cool. Ended up
That's
spending
pretty good.
all of the profits on drinks and food and breakfast and coffee and dinner. With me and my wife went out to a really nice dinner at Blue Ribbon restaurant in the Cosmopolitan. Had a really nice ribeye steak.
Fancy.
So we went out. Me and my wife went out to a dinner by ourselves, and we ended up hanging out with my gaming group, the Corsairs, and carrying on. We stayed at the Cromwell. I'm sure you guys stayed at the Rio, right?
Yeah, we kept it simple this year.
It's pretty nice to stay at the event at the hotel where the event is, because you don't have to. So like for me, I stayed at the Cromwell. I have to figure out every day how to get across the freeway.
With an
Now
army.
luckily, yeah, with my arm, and so it's just a pain in the butt. But my wife, she really likes to stay at the nicer places. I do too. I've become accustomed to that too now. So nothing against the Rio, but she just likes a particular style of
Yeah, Rio could be a little outdated. If you're gonna bring the wife, definitely, spruce it up. Do
Uh,
yeah,
something nice.
splurge a little bit on the nice hotel room.
I'm sure at one age, like one point in your life, you're like, I can't do the 6 man in a room anymore.
No,
Like you
I'm
get past
already at
that.
that age. I went solo both years. Got my own room.
Hey, it's $68 for a hotel room entire weekend.
Yeah, in Vegas, you can't beat that. So, so I played quite a lot of blackjack. My wife likes playing slots. I gave her some money too from out of my winnings, so that was a lot of fun. But other than that, and we went to dinner and hung out with the gaming group. But like you guys, I was really focused on making sure that because I knew if I had great luck at the tables, but my performance at the Warhammer tables kind of stunk it up. I was going to leave a little salty, so I definitely wanted to make sure I focused on the tournament itself.
Yeah,
So
you don't want to let your weekend get ruined by
yeah,
some
no,
salty.
absolutely. But I was thinking to myself, if I don't do well at the tournament, at least I can look forward to going and gambling my troubles away and losing like maybe twice in a row, at the table and at the
Yeah, might
blackjack
as well
table.
commit.
Yeah, exactly. So, cool. Well, I'm really glad that you guys had fun. This is my third LVO. So yeah, this was my third LVO. So last year didn't happen, but the year before, and then 2018, 2019 and every year it just keeps getting a little bit more familiar. And like when I first went, I made the rookie mistake of not realizing how far away things are from each other on the strip or in, like, you can't just walk out of one casino and then just it's a short walk to the next one. There is a lot of walking involved. So like,
It's an adventure.
yeah, I made sure to bring comfortable shoes and to pack my patience and to make sure that I had a plan of what I wanted to do, so you don't just waste time going Ubering all over the city trying to find where everybody's at and missing each other. So, but I'm glad you had a good time, guys. And so what we're going to do is we're going to transition to talking about our lists and why we kind of were bringing what we brought, and then just a quick run through of our games and get and get a sense of how everything went. So we're gonna start from the bottom and work our way up. So with that said, I'll start. Uh, do we have a bring up of the Magakin list? Or I'm maybe it'll just be up on the screen. So yep, there it is. So all right, so my list that I brought to LVO was I'm going to shock the AOS community and say that I brought Magakin, brought Nurgle. It's my main, it's my love. Glory to the grandfather. This is the first time bringing Blessed Sons as the sub faction, and it's interesting because they introduced the Rotmire Creed as a new battle line option, and I was pretty low on them when they first came out, but this tournament definitely changed my opinion. So my list is the Glotkin, who is a War Master, so he's not the chosen general, and he has the spell Rancid Visitations, which is a short proximity AOE mortal wound spell. And then my chosen general was the Lord of Afflictions with the overpowering stench and the split horn helm. No shocker there. If you play any Magakin list, there's a very, very, very high likelihood you'll find that exact setup across the board for a lot of Magakin players.
Yeah, I don't
And
think I've
then
seen you not take that.
yeah, I mean, it's just the options that it gives you are just so it just opens up the whole book. So, and we'll get into that a little bit too, totally. So, and then I have a unit of 10 Blight Kings. I have a unit of 10 Rotmire Creed, a unit of 10 Rotmire Creed, and a unit of 3 Nurglings for a grand total of 1990. All of that is wrapped up into a battle regiment for 1 drop because even I am starting to see how good low drops are, even though I was quite resistant to that. So yeah, so basically the ethos of my list was the Glotkin. He has a special command ability, Blightkrieг, which at the end of the enemy movement phase, if you're within 12 inches of the Glot, they and also another Magakin and Nurgle unit wholly within 18 of them can charge the unit, any unit. As long as you're within 12 inches of the Glot and both units are within 12 of an enemy unit, they can both make a charge in the enemy move phase. I make sure I explain that very clearly to my opponents, but some people still tend to get a little either forgetful or don't understand the nuances of it, and it can catch people off guard. I see it as a defensive ability. I'm not trying to Blightkrieg the 10 Blight Kings. I'm trying to stop you from charging into my lines and then making a counter move off of that. So with that said, my first opponent, I was I was like, come on, I haven't played since Nova. It's been like 5 or 6 months and I really got a game. Maybe I can get just maybe a nice little easy, warm up
Warm up.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a seal or something to play with. But no, I get paired up against Dan Arnold, who's one of the captains of Team Wales for AOS Worlds. So I knew right off the bat the competition was going to be stiff. Dan was bringing a really interesting list. It's a Sylvaneth, and it's in the Dwindling, which gives him additional rend when he's near Overgrown or Wildwoods. And he had a unit of 9 of the Revenant Seekers, so the Revenants on the bugs. Then he had a unit of the Spite Swarm Seekers, the other type of the Sylvaneth bug. So he had 9, 6, 6, 3. No Kurnoth Hunters, no Dryads. He had the Warsong Revenant. He had the Gur Mage, and I was like, holy crap! Bounty Hunters galore, and this was the luckiest game of Age of Sigmar I've ever had. Dan was positioned great. He gets a pregame move, so I knew I had to take first turn because I outdropped him. Didn't want to. The mission was Presence of Idols. I did not want to get alpha pinned in my territory. So I ended up taking first, casting my defensive buffs on the Blight Kings, and then just rushing to the midboard. And then just praying for not a double turn. So he moved up his Revenant Seekers, the 9 block of Bounty Hunters, and he stayed outside of Blightkrieg range, which was a smart man, because otherwise I would have just thrown 10 Rotmire Creed at him and then can't charge my Blight Kings. But he was smart and was able to avoid that with some very precise movement. Tremendous guy, too. And he failed to make the 5-inch charge into my Blight Kings. With a reroll, failed the reroll as well.
Oh, yeah, hate to see it.
Then we settled everything, proceeded to roll priority. I roll a 1. Dan also rolls a 1. So I don't get double turned. And all he needed was a 2+. Again, Three roll. I mean, a rerollable 5-inch charge is about as lucky as you can get. So, I ended up kind of crashing into that 9 block with the Glot, the 10 Kings, the Lord of Afflictions. The Lord of Afflictions, for anybody who doesn't know, you can't issue command abilities if you're within 7, and you can't receive command abilities if you're wholly within 7. So I move him up, stop, redeploy. He can't all out defense, and then I charge with everything into him, and then he can't inspiring presence. I actually whiffed on my attacks, but I ended up killing like 6 of the bugs out of the 9, or maybe 5 out of the 9, and then the rest ran to battle shock because he couldn't inspire. So the he started getting a little down, as anybody would, but I was just like, dude, you got a lot of mobility here. You have a lot of options. You just keep going, keep going. This game is not over. It's only turn 2. By turn 4, I was scrapping for a win because that dude can play. And he was denying battle tactics. He was scoring. He was denying my battle tactics. He was scoring his. So it was a wild ride. I needed my grand strategy to win. By the way, my grand strategy in the list was Tend the Garden. It's a Nurgle specific battle tactic where I just have to have a Feculent Norma wholly within enemy territory at the end of the game and no enemy units within 3 inches of any Narmals. So I do this cheeky little thing where I don't deploy my starting Narmal, and then I save 9 summoning points for the end of the game last turn. The Narmals can be summoned anywhere on the board. Don't have to be summoned near
Not
a
from a
hero.
hero? Oh
Not from a
wow.
hero, not from a tree, just outside of 7 of other Narmals and outside of 3 of other units, objectives, and terrain. So I save 9 summoning points for contagion points for the last turn, pop up the tree, undeniable grand strat. It's a wonderful thing. So, Dan, if you're watching, I had a hell of a game. Just roll better and you'll do better. I don't know how he did the rest of the
Classic.
tournament. I'm sure it's well because he was a great guy. My second game was against SoCal local Asia Van. And I've played against Asia before, actually, at the last Old Town Throwdown Summer Smash. I love the energy and the intensity that she brings to her matches. Like she starts the game with her foot on the gas and just doesn't stop, right? And it's just it's great to see. Sometimes people have a table presence where it's a little unengaging and a little kind of a little flat, right? You'll never get that if you're on the opposite side of the table from Asia. So
Yeah, she's
I
got a great
really,
personality. I enjoyed my game with her at an RTT once.
yeah, it's really great, and she's playing Feck, so it's kind of an uphill battle of Flesh Eater Courts because it's kind of an uphill battle because they have a really aging battle tome and it's starting to show its age. But she picked some really interesting spells, and she was casting them on the right units at the right time. And from the very moment of our game, we played you're gonna have to help me out here with the mission. It's the one with the 3 in the mid, and then I think it's Priza
Yeah,
Galette, right?
Prize of Galera, you got to
Priza
activate.
Galette. And she just made some really smart plays. I made a really huge mistake by allowing her to redeploy her Crypt Horrors early on, which nearly cost me a battle tactic. But we fought tooth and nail for the whole game, and it showed in the final result because we wound up with a draw. So, you take a great engaging opponent like that to a draw, and you can't walk away from the table unhappy. It was just a hard fought game, and man, 9 Crypt Horrors in 1 unit. That is a terrifying unit.
It's so much damage, and it's honestly so hard to get through. And the worst part is if you don't finish that unit, like they're just coming back.
Yeah, they're coming back, and there's this spell. I think it's Deranged Transformation, where they add the wounds characteristic to their movement characteristic, they add
Something like that, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just like it sucks on ghouls because they just get +1 move, but on Crypt Horrors they get +4 movement. Like that's so it's just really good. It gets around some of the when you can get bogged around terrain, it helps move around corners and stuff like that. So I had a lot of fun, Asia, if you're watching, and I hope to play again at one of our local events. And so for the end of day 1, I played the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Alex Gonzalez, my teammate on the beloved Corsairs. This is the first time I've got to play Alex. So Alex is a captain of the Corsairs. I believe he's one of the founding members too, and he is perennially in the top 10 or in the throws for the top 10 for the ITC. He knows his army inside and out, and that can really what separates the goods from the greats. Not only knowing your opponent's army, but really knowing everything there is to know about your army and the capabilities.
Did he
So
go
this is
back to Soulblight for LVO? Because I know he was playing Nighthawk for a long time.
Yeah, he was playing Soulblight Gravelords for LVO, and I'll try to remember his list as best I can. So he had a block of 20 skeletons and a corpse cart, which were kind of operating independently. Then he had Chadakar the Beast, and then who can summon a unit of 10 direwolves, and then he had 2 additional units of direwolves, and then he had 20 Graveguard that he set up in the grave, the Vampire Lord with a bunch of different abilities and some like a martial prowess that they got from their White Dwarf update. And I think that might have been the list. That's pretty much all that. Oh, he had Kato and Manfred too.
And
Kato's
2
been pretty
Varg
popular
Spears.
lately.
So we were playing on Silk Steel Nests, and man, it was just so fun to actually get a chance to play. Alex, we talk every day. We run lists through each other. I mean, he knew exactly what my list because I've been talking about it for months with him and everybody else in the Corsair. So it was finally get a chance to play with him in like a competitive setting. And man, it was. And this is a hard mission for me, so I was kind of a little like, you know, what's the most dangerous thing ever is playing a man with nothing to lose, right? And I was kind of had that attitude. I kind of had this sense of like, I'm playing a great opponent who knows his army well on a mission that I don't traditionally do well on because of my low body count. So I was like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to play with my toys and I'm going to roll some dice and we'll see what happens. We'll let Nurgle sort them out. And so basically he sent I gave him first turn and he sent Kato he pinioned him up and sent him straight into 10 Rotmire Creed, who just these little swamp hobos, man, they unleashed hell, and then he killed a couple, like a bunch of them, but then the rest of the attacks plucked a few more wounds off of them, rolled some disease, and Kato died to 10 little swamp idiots. And that was like, I think of maybe like Alex was like, oh wow, Kato just died.
Just
And I was like,
evaporated.
yeah. And so I I felt like this a little bit of a momentum shift. So I was just like, gas, just go. Like send the Blight Kings straight up the board. Make sure Glott's not going to be, hit by a bad angle with 20 Graveguard popping out of the grave behind him. So screen that off. Send the flies after the skeletons because that's kind of their strong suit. And then so I ended up kind of just pushing up the mid board, leaving all my objectives behind, just terrifying. And then just kind of was like, okay, hope I get a good priority roll here. Managed to get the double turn and just sent the Blight Kings straight into 30 wolves and Chadakar and the Vampire Lord, and was just like, go cause chaos, go cause havoc, get disease on everything, start like, whittling things down, slowly grinding everything. And he just could not, even with the Graveguard coming in and trying to give some support, he couldn't break those Blight Kings. At the end of the game, the flies had taken care of the corpse cart and the skeletons. The Blight Kings, there were 5 of them left fighting Radakar one-on-one. The Graveguard were gone. All the wolves were gone. And I ended up coming away with the win, which was really surprising given the fact that Alex is so talented and knows this game really, really well.
Yeah, that's a big win.
So, yeah, it was. If it was a good win, so I ended the day 2 wins and no losses and 1 draw. So I was undefeated after day 1. Then got a good night's sleep. Definitely wanted to I had a 4-0-1 in mind, even if I knew it was like maybe like just out of reach because I haven't been playing too much. But I could smell it, so I played. So for my 4th game, for the game 4, we played on Realmstone Cache. I played against Daughters of Cain, Marathi, 15 bow snakes, a couple other melee snakes, some witch elves, a couple of bounty hunters here and there. And not going to lie, this is a mission I traditionally do well on as Nurgle. This is one I look forward to because I can push up to the mid board really easily with a lot of durable bodies. And it's really, and then, just kind of relying on maybe on a little bit of luck or a little bit of positioning to wherever the objectives land when they explode, you can be ready to pounce. But get an early lead and then grind out a win is usually how I approach that mission. Unfortunately, my opponent, I gave her first turn, and she had the same idea because she's got a very tanky unit with the Shadow Queen. So she pushes the Shadow Queen onto the middle objective. I made it a proving ground, but she still had some Witch Elves. So, but I figured if I do that, I can at least get the Blight Kings on there and maybe outnumber her. But Um, so she scored her points. I took my turn. I put all my defensive buffs, and the Rotmire Creed. Like if Marathi can only take 3 wounds, Rotmire Creed is the unit to attack her with from 14-inch range, shooting, disease. Put the requisite 3 wounds on her, and then that was pretty much it. She won priority, and she was going to charge the Shadow Queen right into the middle of my army, the Lord of Afflictions, the Blight Kings. I was very clear on what Blight Creed can do, and this is one of the times where the opponent doesn't maybe understand the nuances of the ability, and so before she could go on to the shooting phase and then charge, I just sent 10 Rotmire Creed into her, and she couldn't, and she can't charge the valuable targets that she wants. She ended up wasting those Rotmire Creed for sure. They got some disease and did 3 wounds to her, but yeah, it was a big brain play on my part. Big brain, yeah. So I ended up killing Marathi over the course of like 2 turns with just disease and Rotmire Creed shots. And the bow snakes got a little nervous and started retreating back. The objectives landed, and I was able to. I almost screwed myself. I made the objective a proving ground when I really should not have.
Been there,
And
done that.
I thought I was trying to be tricksy, but I almost screwed myself out of a win because I won with just 1 point. And she had got her grand strat, which it's Daughters of Cain. So, but I almost screwed myself by making it a proving ground. So I was able to get the win there. And then for my last game, I was mentally drained, mentally tired, but I knew I had the chance to go 4-0-1. Played a great guy, Kevin Lathers from the Georgia area of the state. He's telling me all about the scene that him and his group, the Georgia War Band, is building down there, and I'm really excited to see some really cool events come their way, and they're going to start trying to promote some more ITC friendly events in the Southeast United States. So that's great. He was playing a Vorstag list, Fire Slayers, with 60 Volkite Berserkers.
Ooh, that's scary.
Yeah, 3 of them in Bounty Hunters, 3 of them in Expert Conquerors, bunch of Flame Keepers.
That's a lot of damage.
I got a crash course in how good Flame Keepers are. One Magma Droth with one of the Rune Zaddies on there with all the tricks, all the buffs, all the artifacts. And it was on Nidus Paths. And I'll tell you one thing. I got a crash course again in how great being the defender is when you set up terrain. Because Kevin, here's an actual big brain move, not like what I just said. He put the 2 impassable walls in a diagonal in the middle of the board. And so Nidus Paths are 4 objectives in the corners. And so he put the 2 impassable walls in the middle in a diagonal, essentially cutting the board in half, but terrain's got to be 6 inches away so I can still get the glot through there. Except when I give him first turn and he drops a firewall right in the middle of those 2 pieces, and I have no priests.
Yep, that'll do it.
There it is. There it is.
What I did to you with the shackles that one time.
You did, and I almost would have learned my lesson if I was an intelligent human, but I did not. And also, it made me realize how great having at least 1 priest in your army is for that exact reason, because you can have a non-wizard at least with an unbind through heroic willpower, right? But there is no such thing for a priest. So
yeah, I don't know why it's not vice versa. I think it's a little silly, but maybe there's some kind of design they got in mind.
What are you going to do? And so it essentially cut the board completely in half. So if you don't know what the firewall does, you can't walk over it unless you can fly. And not even Fire Slayers. Like even the Volkites can't walk through it if they can't fly. And you just can't get rid of it if you don't have a priest. So I had to quickly adjust my game plan and spread my army out, which is really not something I wanted to do. So I was struggling with battle tactics early. There's no good desecrate option because if you look at the Old Town Throwdown pack at oldtownthrowdown.com, they have terrain maps with everything. And the way that the terrain is set up with the territories, I have no good desecrate their lands option with the Nurglings, which is usually my go-to. And I had no good option for really so my first 2 turns, I don't think I scored a battle tactic, and it kind of put me on my back foot. He took advantage. I was able to catch him off guard, I think, with how much damage the Rotmire Creed were able to do from shooting, and then also impact hits from the flies were popping. And I was still in the game, if not just on my back foot. And toward the end of the game, he looked like he was going to basically be set up to run away with it. And I just had this stroke of brilliance at the end with a Blight Krieg that I saw the opportunity for. And I ended up charging the Glotkin and getting a good roll in his movement phase, and was able to get into the Volkite Berserkers and his Flamekeepers. And then I was able to cut off a path for his Magmadroth to charge the Glotkin with my Rotmire Creed. So that was pretty cool. So he the Magmadroth can kill the chaff. That's totally fine, but he wasn't going to get to my prize pig. And then the Glotkin has a unique monstrous action on a 2-up. There's 5 mortal wounds if he's at full health.
Sits on him.
Yeah, exactly. Does the Rashiki from the WWE, and but I didn't get that 2-up off, which would have been nice to just pop one of the Flamekeepers and then smack the Volkites, but it didn't end up working out. And I'll tell you, the combination of Fight on Death with the Flamekeeper buffs giving you +1 damage, they were getting +1 rend. So even if I was doing damage with my Blight Kings, I was still receiving the full force of that unit. And so he was great with his movement and really timely redeploys, and basically kept me at arm's length for pretty much the whole game. But it was one of the funnest games I had, because Kevin is just so engaging as a person and just really kept the energy up, even though it looked like from pretty much turn 1 or 2, he was gonna take that one. So he ended up winning the game. He came in 12th place because he also had a draw. And there was actually this weird moment where we were doing some quick math on Best Coast pairings and realized that whoever won this game had a chance to get into the top cut, because there was another couple of people with draws. And if the right person won that game, the winner of our game was going to go on potentially in the top cut. So it was like the stakes got raised all of a sudden, to use a Vegas pun. And but he ended up getting the win. It was a great game. I had a lot of fun. I ended the tournament at 3-1-1. My goal was 3-2, so I guess I did better than my goal. But
That's a 4-1 in our hearts.
You know what I mean? I felt a little less unsatisfied, but that's good, because it gives me something to work on and to look forward to for this next season. So that was my experience. I hope I didn't run on too long there. But who's Taran, we haven't heard from you. So do you want to give us a rundown of your list and then how your games went?
Yeah, sure. So I forgot my own. Okay, I brought Blades of Khorne, Reapers of Vengeance. There wasn't any surprise as to what I would take. I think all 3 of us are quite devoted to our respective Chaos Gods.
Yeah, so we got all Chaos
in
this house.
I have a deck.
There you go. Shane's got a blue shirt on. It fits.
Going top down for my list. I think new points came out just before, and new books came out just before. So in designing my list, I had to say, what are people going to be bringing to LVO? What tools can my army have to counteract the meta and what I'm most afraid of? Because at a certain point, you have confidence, especially as Khorne. I have confidence going into most melee armies. So saying that, I think, what do I do against shooting? And really, it sucks as this faction to say nothing. Other than you have to play the points very well. So going for my list, I have the Bloodthirst-driven Sensate Rage. And if you don't know what that does, on a 6 to wound, it does 4 mortal wounds to every single thing within 8.
The boom.
It is
8 mortal wounds, right? It should just do 8 mortal wounds to everything within 8.
It should just table your army. I mean,
it sometimes does that, but it usually does nothing. It's 5 attacks. The artifact I gave it gives +1 to attack, so 6 attacks, but it's on a 4-up to hit. So sometimes when you need it to do anything, it'll just roll 3s, and you're like,
I call it the Khorne slot machine, to use another Vegas pun, because if you roll 6s, it's amazing, but if you don't, it's like very mid, right?
Well, I've heard the different philosophies asked too. Oh, should I take it? Should I not? In my opinion, the fact that you have another threat piece that people are going to deem something scary and something they want to stay away from, stops things from like overly aggressive double turns, over aggressive plays. and it's just the fear. I think a lot of people in Southern California have played Tom a lot, who kind of, I don't want to say taught me how to play the faction. I just watched, I saw him and his army, and I was like, that seems like really cool. I want to
Gatekeeper list, the Bloodthirsters.
He's Khorne daddy. Like let's be honest.
Khorne
like,
daddy.
Yeah.
I'm Khorne baby, you know.
Khorne child.
Children of the Khorne.
A lot of
There
people,
it is. All right, good. There we go. We got it.
a lot of people in SoCal think they've played him and they've watched that thing roll like 3 or 4 6s and table their entire army.
Especially when you're just not expecting him to pile in from 6 inches away, which I think you'll get into, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, all of my heroes are clustered right there, or you don't realize how big of a bubble 8 inches is from, like, if he's attacking a big unit. So yeah, it can be devastating. What else did you have in your list, Taran?
Probably enough about that one. It's just so fun to talk about.
Yeah, no, it really is.
Yeah. The entire part of Khorne and Bloodthirsters is they don't have to charge to get into combat. The subfaction ability allows them to immediately fight twice, which is a 2.0 thing. It's going to get changed. It's like Feck. But my general, the Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury, has a command ability that he uses on himself. Everything wholly within 16, that demons get to pile 6 inches, and they are considered within combat. So, depending on what I'm going into, the biggest thing is, and I'll talk about another piece of my list that really helps me do this, is that Bloodthirsters don't have a mathematical failure. You don't have this element of, oh, am I going to make this charge? Am I not going to make this charge? You only have, I'm within 6. If you don't redeploy, I'm within 6. I can always get into combat. Whenever you're within 6, you can always get into combat. You can put them behind your screens. You can trap things in, not just Bloodthirsters. You can flash arms to trap things into combat that they've already activated. It's a very complicated mechanic to play around, but it's kind of the biggest tools we have in the army. If not it's the tool in the army.
Yeah.
Without it, you just charge. You don't have anything that gives you fight first, so you die. Like you have one activation, but you can't charge multiple things in a turn. 6 in a pile unless you do that. Scarbrand. That comes from my general. That's all he does. Scarbrand kills anything in the game. I don't really need to go into the ability. People think you can fail. It's an ability that doesn't actually fail. It's a 1-up, but it's not a hit. It's not a wound. It's just a 1-up. So if I roll a 1, it still goes off. And it's 8 mortal wounds. I give him extra attack. It's 16 mortal wounds. He immediately fights twice. So he immediately does 32 mortal wounds. No one's ever happy to face that.
Have you ever had anybody say, it does what? Can I read the War Scroll?
Yes. I think every game, actually. I would go ahead and say 80% of my games, people go, wait. I have my entire army right here, and he's going to do 8 mortal wounds to that, 8 mortal wounds to that, 8 mortal wounds to that, 8 mortal wounds at that, and still has 20 attacks at damage 3. And I'm like, yeah.
He's an angry boy.
He is, and it makes sense. I mean, he is, lore-wise, the best combatant in the best melee faction. Like, I'm okay with him dying. He should be able to kill anything, in my opinion.
Tactical nuke.
In the lore, he did punch the god of anger and murder in the face.
He's
like the only one to have ever touched them.
Yeah, and so, yeah, exactly. So he's like, I'm so impressed. All I'm going to do is take away your ability to fly.
And then I have a Slaughter Priest. If Barker had a Slaughter Priest, he wouldn't have had the Fire Slayer's problem. It's a priest. It can curse. It can bless, which is a 6 aboard. I don't use it that much, but it also gives me Blood Tithe, which is my faction mechanic. It allows me to do a lot of out of phase things, like the Glock thing. Like you look at Barker's list, any out of sequence movement or charging is very strong in this game. It's something that dictates and changes the fact that a lot of the times you don't get to do a lot on your enemy's turn, but having these abilities gets you something that's a completely unique playstyle. The Glot allows you to do something that's completely unique. So that's about like what that Blood Tithe gives me, along with a couple other abilities in summoning, which is very strong. I have Blood Sprayer, just gives +1 attack. It makes everything in my army a little bit more of a murder machine. Then my Battle Line. With the new Slaves of Darkness book, they released these war bands, or not released, but they completely rewrote all the scrolls, and some of them are very good. The Unmade, everyone, like, you see Corvus on eBay for like $90. Like, the Unmade allow for no redeploy or rally within 12. which when you have a 6-inch pylon is the greatest synergy you can have. Because it
all your
means
problems.
if I auto run to you, you can't redeploy. Before it was I can only be up within 30. So if you roll a 3 up to redeploy, you're okay. But the unmade, I mean, it's a 12-inch range from an entire unit, so you're not really getting out of it. Like even the unmade have an effective threat range of let's say like 23 inches of just the no redeploy, which is exactly coincidentally around 22 inches for Bloodthirster range. Blood Reavers, they die. Upper Blood Flesh Hounds, they're just a decent green. They have an unbind. They 6-inch pylon, so you can trap things in combat when you need them to. Corvus Cabal, they're going to be a free deep strike, which is very good in this GHB. They're going to be a little bit worse in the new GHB, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but still amazing. Just not a lot of armies have the ability to say, you cannot leave your objective because I will then be on it. You have to leave certain things behind because if you don't, I'm going to be there. I have 2 basically free battle tactics with them, with Barge and Desecrate, which end of the day, the game's about battle tactics. I've whipped to some more Gor's Fiends. I don't think I've seen anyone take these, but with Bounty Hunters in this GHB, if you don't know what Bounty Hunters does, it increases your damage by 1 on on any Galatian veterans, which are basically your small battle line units. Yeah. What's strong about Bounty Hunters, and I see it misused a lot of the time, people put it on units that already do a lot of damage. I put Bounty Hunters on this little terrible unit because it has so many attacks and it fights on death. So it's a warband, so you take 2 units and they have the same points. So these are effectively 50 points just going up and trading with anything it needs to and dying. And in Khorne, you actually want things to die, and you don't have the tools you need to trade.
You're usually punching up with that unit for sure, like you said, putting Bounty Hunters, which can just absolutely bye-bye, so long, see ya, never have you see again. But using it the way that you did with Magor's Fiends is very, very smart. Very smart.
Then I have Riptooth. Riptooth is actually a single flesh out.
Like Blood Bowl. It's like a special character for Blood Bowl.
It is actually a single flesh hound. It's 2 wounds. That's it. He dies. So I have a prayer that allows me to do damage to myself for my own faction points. But if something on the field dies, I also get extra faction points. So turn 1, I just kill him. And I'm like, yeah, you did a great job. Matt already made this joke where going over my list is like where the red fern dies, calling this list where the red dog dies. It is just a single flesh out and he dies tragically at the start of my own hero phase every time.
Little buddy.
Wrathmongers, also an amazing bounty hunter tool because they have 25 attacks. So there's high attacks, high volume, and they give me extra attacks. I don't usually use them for the extra attacks that much, but it's like you have to kill them, and they're just a decent trading piece. Hexforger Skulls, Shane hates these. I know he does.
These things.
They are amazing.
Taran only ever beats me because of those.
Yeah, sure. They make every wizard within 12 -2 to cast. You would take
right
that.
That would be worth their points right there, right?
That would be points, right?
Dude, that would be so busted enough as it is.
Here is the extra part. When you're within 8, if you roll an unmodified 8 to cast, you forget your spell, and every wizard takes d6 mortal wounds. If you're playing an army like Lumineth or Tzeentch, it's possible that your entire hero core dies. If you're playing Lumineth, your sentinels are taking damage, your wardens are taking damage. Every unit you have that's like this small caster is taking damage.
Especially when you're castling up, because those armies like to castle up.
Yeah. Like Barker, I had a battle regiment. It made me go down from 14 drops to 12. So that wasn't that useful. It didn't actually do anything. But talk a while about my list. I'll go on to my games.
Yeah, totally.
I played an amazing player, Joseph Hawkins. This was my only loss, and he brought all Stonehorns and the Incarnate. And Khorne does not
use Boulderhead, right?
Yeah, Khorne does not do well into the Incarnate. It was a very fun game. I was very stressed. Like, you look at this list, and some factions are like, "Oh, I'm sure it's fine," but it's very stressful to play, especially with the 3d6 charge, because new ogres, they just got their new tome, and it's a very good tome. It is, when you charge with a Stonehorn, you make a 3d6 move that flies and goes into anything. So turn 1, he just smashes into all of my screens, and usually my thought is, like, it's so risky to do that. Like, you don't know if you're going to get doubled, but he just kept winning. So he won the prio. He charged another screen, rolled a 16 on his 3d6 fly, went right into Scarbrand. Scarbrand lived, but didn't kill the Stonehorn because I used all at defense minus hour on him. So he won that prio. Then it was my turn. I had to take that turn to kill the Frost Lord and like another one of the Stonehorn. A single Stonehorn without having charged my Insensate killed it, which is tough. They're super swingy, but the problem with Khorne is that your entire army depends on these things that are just 14 wounds on a 4-up, which is literally the same as if you had a normal battle line unit. Like a lot of battle line units have 10 wounds on a 4-up, or 11 because of like the alpha. So it's very easy to get rid of. The Crime Spine just had to be there, and I couldn't do anything about him. And then Scarbrand turn. So I lost the prio, and then I lost the prio again. And Scarbrand got Voracious Mod off the board when he had 6 or 7 wounds taken. So if you don't know what that does, it's you take D3 mortal wounds if it goes off, right? But on a 4-up, you keep taking D3 mortal wounds. So we just kept rolling the 4-up and kept blasting. So Scarbrand died, and I'm like,
it's like a Wargog stare.
But just with that, it was a turn 5 game. I lost maybe like, I want to say 3 points. It just came down to I couldn't kill a Beast Rider. I couldn't get a battle tactic, or I could get a battle tactic, but I had to choose between the battle tactic and my grand strat. So it was just difficult as to where I was going to get my points turn 5. So
you're just trying to do the math at the end of the game and figure out, can I get the draw? Can I get the win?
And it was like I had to take a risky battle tactic of saying my Unfettered Fury, my Bloodthirster General, can it kill a Stonehorn Beast Rider? Which the problem with Khorne is that if you know the army, if you know the lore, your answer would be like, of course it's going to do that. It's the best melee they're the best melee combatants in the game. He has a Foot hero profile of 6 attacks and D3 damage each. So he did not, in fact,
Is it the whip guy?
Yeah.
That guy's a chump.
Yeah,
I mean, like, he's got the greatest command ability ever, but
greatest command ability ever. Everything else about him is terrible. So yeah, that was my first loss of the day. Then I played Ben Hosking, who's an amazing. Oh, by the way, Joseph Hawkins, super fun, amazing to play against. Then I played Ben Hosking, who's actually a local. He brought, and this is a good list if you have at least like $4,000 in the bank. He brought 80 Splintered Fang that all come back. So he's playing Ravagers in the new SCD book. Splintered Fang are a very good war scroll, but they're part of like this exclusive release, right? So
Understatement of the goddamn year right there. That war scroll is so effed.
So they're but kind of balances it out, and not actually how you should balance the game is that they're part of this unique release. So it's hard to get them. Same with all the other war bands. People are like, "Oh, I'll pay you $200 for your 2 warband units." But Ben was a genius. He was a psychic. Like 3 years ago, he just bought 80 of them when they weren't so expensive.
He's the only one. He's the only
one. Only man on the planet.
World.
His list is nasty. Going over it, the command isn't that insane, but it's Ravagers. So when you kill one of these units, they come back. Half of them come back as a heroic act, or as an ability from the heroes. So the 80 snakes turn into 120 snakes, right? 126 no, because you have 80 divided by half, so eventually 120. And then just Corvus Cabal, Untamed Beast, which are good because they have a pregame move, and then 2 Mind Stealers. The Mind Stealer used to be, you play a game, it was about literally like an 85% chance that you make something fight last in your hero phase. They changed. Everyone said they were terrible, but they're actually, I think, quite good, because what it is now, at the start of the combat phase, you choose something within 12 and you have to beat its bravery. That's where people think it's bad, but most things in this game aren't, like, you have death and you have chaos, and those are going to be the high bravery.
Demons, specifically
demons. So, but a lot of things in this game, like even Orator, are going to be floating around that like 7 or 8. So just having this 95 points that says, sure, charge me. 50-50. It's like a 4-up. 50-50 on most units if you'll actually fight, or you charge something and your fight lasts. I think it's a great tech. You took 2 of those, and you can still use the same ability, just it have to be different units. Great game. I won, basically, in my opinion, off like a big misplay, which I know Ben knows what Scarbrand does, but he charged everything in his army at Scarbrand, and then said, I'm going to activate with my 10 snakes first. 10 snakes are good, but on average, they only do about 11 damage. And 11 damage is what they did. So
that just pisses off Scarbrand.
That's just
Scarbrand killed every single thing around him. He did maybe like 60 damage, right? And I was like, I'm in a good position. Scarbrand's still alive. And at that point, it was over. Like, there's no coming back from your entire army dying.
It's demoralizing when you have your army and then all of a sudden you don't. Right?
You charge everything into Scarbrand.
Yeah, I made that same mistake at a San Diego tournament for the GW one against Tom. Actually, Charles trying to get the 4-1 there, and I had all the other Bloodthirsters like calm down. I had them under control, and then I was like, okay, I need to screen out Scarbrand. That's the missile, and then I threw 50 pinks at him to like keep him controlled, and he just ate through 50 wounds like it was like nothing.
Like nothing, yeah.
Or not 50 pinks, but yeah, 50 wounds of pinks.
He does. My third game was Ideneth. And I will say, great opponent, also from Georgia. Talking about the Georgia scene, how there's like GTs coming up, and I'm like, yeah. He's like, you should come to the GT, and I'm like, I'm not flying to Georgia, but thank you for the offer. Great player. There was actually something different about this LVO pack compared to the SoCal pack, which is Gareth Thomas, our local TO. He made this pack that a lot of tournaments use. They've incorporated the rules, they've incorporated FAQs. But in this pack, you can put garrisonable terrain on objectives. And I was playing the 8 objective Silk Steel.
Mm-hmm.
So turn 1, I didn't even set up Defender on this. He set up Defender, but it was a massive terrain piece that covered both objectives. And obviously, most good players are going to say, you take first, because I want to work whatever I can do. I don't care what you're doing. You're not doing anything important first turn. But I put my Blood Reavers inside the garrison and took his back objective, turn 1, it wasn't game winning, but it was just so good to have that extra point and say, now you have to kill this. You're not killing anything else, because if you don't, you're losing out. You're losing out 1-2, or you're losing out more, which is really when the game's about points. Ideneth personally, as a matchup, is really bad for Khorne. You don't want to face a list that has shooting, and his list was 30 Reavers and 4 Sharks, which 30 Reavers are good at shooting.
And the Sharks too. They have Ren 2 D3 damage, man. That's a lot of good shooting, high quality shooting.
Very, very scary shooting. And it kind of came down to Scarbrand again. I mean, he's the backbone of this army. I hope he stays the way he is, but I'm happy if he gets changed and everything else gets decent, because everything else in that book is dude. But he shot my general with 30 Reavers, but I had him finest hour in all defense, so I was a 3-up save. So he picks up his 60 something dice, right? Maybe that's 61. Picks up his 60 dice, 2-up, 3-ups. Does like an average amount, but on a 3-up, I just rolled the saves I needed to, so he was alive. He only took 6 damage from 30 Reavers.
Wow.
Which is like 4 better than the average. Like if I actually went to the bathroom before this shooting thing happened because I really had to pee, and I was in my head. I was like, 30 Reavers, 60 shots, this many hits, this many wounds, finest hour, all defense, 3-up save. He's gonna live. I got this. So he lived.
Aaron willed it to happen while he's peeing at LVO.
He's praying to Khorne while he's taking a piss.
Yeah. So he lives, and then Scarbrand just goes monkey, and picks up the 30 Reavers, picks up thralls that in front of him, just went crazy. But even because of that, because of Sharks, it's like Khorne can't really do anything against Sharks. They move too fast, they shoot too far. So it came down to a very close game. I ended up winning, getting my Grand Strat because of those massive garrisons too. Like I dropped Corvus, got Desecrate, and just garrisoned them because those 2 garrisons that took up. And my Grand Strats have a GV in every corner, but not wholly within. So you just have 1 GV in the middle, or just 2 GVs here, or 2 GVs here. 1 GB can take 3/4 if they want to. It's a very good grand strat, and I'll have to think about where it's going to go once it's gone.
Yeah.
Even I'm not really going to play Khorne this new GHB, but because a new book coming soonish, and I just want to get some reps in, learn how to patch it. I know BOC is the best book. I'm telling you. I played John Anderson. John Anderson is the
Oh yeah, absolutely. John's a great guy.
he just won Brewhammer too.
With yeah.
I played John Anderson. He's the captain of like Team America Stripes team, which is like one of their like Team America's like sub faction things. I don't know.
The JV team, right? Like yeah,
the JV. And I'm on the other JV team of Stars. So he sat down, kind of made it a teaching game. His competition, no way for top Luminef dropped. So he's like, I don't really care if I win or lose. But we had a lot of talking. And it just came.
Makes objective markers, like the Honest Wargamer style objective markers, and you can like have. And I had a pair. So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So he's playing Luminef with cows, and looking at the list, I was like, oh, there's like 4 ward against mortal wounds. This is annoying. Khorne does not like Luminef either, but not really this list. Because he brought cows, and what cows do is they have a 4 ward against mortals when they're on objectives, and they reduce rend to 0, but only if it's rend 1 or 2. I don't have anything other than rend. I don't even have rend on most of my units, so it doesn't really matter. It's like, sure, you're going to be at 3-up save no matter what. Enjoy reducing my no rend to no rend. But it kind of came down to, and the 4 mortal against wards was scary because I was like, that's all I have is a lot of the times mortals. But the way this Luminef ability works is you have to be on an objective you control, which sounds good, but when you need to push onto the points you need, like that are farther up, it doesn't. Control happens at the end of your phase, so you have to have an entire turn go by before you have this ability, and that just messes with your positioning, where you're gonna be, and it's like only against things with mortal wounds. It wasn't that scary of an ability, but it came down to.
This is on Realmstone Cache, correct?
Yes. So it has one objective in the middle that just blows up to somewhere random. So we talked about positioning, like I had something on every single possible point, just in case. It ended up blowing into, I want to say, like the 2 corner ones.
Yeah.
But again, this game came down to, and you're never going to guess what it came down to. He put 2 dragons and 10 stone guard, which is like something ridiculous. Check the points. Is literally because 10 dragons are or not 10 dragons. That'd be crazy. His storm drake guards are 340 points, and 10 stone guard, which are like 260. So you have
like a quarter of his army. Yeah,
a quarter of his army, and it was my turn, and I'm like, battle tactic, kill those guys. Scarbrand moves up. Scarbrand kills both of the dragons in one activate. It was a little bit rude of me to say this, but I said, you don't have a ward. This ability doesn't fail. We don't need to roll this out. They're picked up. Because he had 16 wounds exactly left there. 16 wounds left in both units. I'm like, I actually mathematically cannot fail. I don't even have to roll my dice. I just have to say 16 there, 16 there. Pick both of them up. Yeah,
I don't think that's rude to say, certainly, because it's a true statement, and you're not like being like gloating about it. You're just like stating an objective fact.
I think it's disrespectful to have to roll a 1-up.
I know it kind of is like a slap in the face to your opponent.
Like, I'll just roll it anyways.
Players complaining about having to roll dice. Oh no, my sympathies go out to your Destiny dice.
Destiny dice Scarbrand.
And then actually,
you wish you could Destiny dice Scarbrand's attack.
Well, you could. Back in the 2.0 Tzeentch book, you could take Legion of the First Prince, and you could Destiny dice the Insensate and Scarbrand with Kairos, because it could change one thing once per battle. And you could just say 16 mortal wounds there, or 4 mortal wounds for everything in your army. So that was a pretty nasty combo, which people took a lot.
That must have been like 1.0, because the 2.0...
No. That was 2.0. That was very recently. Until the new Disciples of Tzeentch book came out, you could do that. That combo, which it was good, because you had Legion at like 50-something% win rate with that Insensate and Kairos. That's what they would take.
Then they took Plague Bearers and the Slanesh Mirror, and it was and you can't kill Bellicor. It was a gross list.
Yeah, it was pretty disgusting. So that was my turn 4 game. After that, it was over. Like the list is mobile enough, and I have so many things in the field. There's nothing you really do. And then my last game, this game was
so you're three. So Taran, so you're three. You lost your first game to the Stonehorn, and then the Stonehorn Incarnate combo, and then you won your next 3 in a row. So you're 3-1 at this point, heading into a decisive game 5. And submarine, baby, boom. And so the mission for round 5 was, of course, I'll let you guys say it because of course I remember.
Nidus?
I was Nidus. Yeah.
So your Nidus pass, you're looking down the barrel of a 4-1. Tell us how it went.
You know, I, as a player, am very nervous about everything. But this was probably the best opponent I had. Brian, he's also in SoCal. Still enough player, just great. Like, honestly.
Brute Squad, Brian?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Brute Squad.
It wasn't a 4-1 game. And not in, like, either of us played poorly. Just that we just had a blast. Like, Brian was pretty drunk halfway through at that point. He got me beers. Like, obviously I wanted the 4-1. But, like, it was amazing because usually I've been at 4-1 tables before, right? I've been at 2. I've played with it's like SoCal Open, Old Town Throwdown. Usually they're very stressful because even if you're not winning, sometimes GTs, it's like the difference between like you can get 3rd place with a 4-1, which is big. But this game, it didn't feel like it. He played Sylvaneth, and it was a Sylvaneth. Like people call it the Sexplosion because you do a bunch of mortals. It's an AOE mortal list
from the Warsong Revenant.
It's an AOE mortal list with Kurnoffs that teleport, spite rev, and charge. Yeah. It's pretty strong. And my priors were not great at LVO. I won maybe like 4 of them. But so I think I lost all the priors in this one. But like against a list like Sylvaneth, I've actually played it so much that I know the army very well. So I was like,
separates the good players from the great armies, or from the great players too. Is like, I mentioned knowing your own army and its limitations and capabilities, but if you know your opponent's army, that's such a huge leg up on the rule.
So even like he
in the game,
and this is, I think when you set the precedent of this is how your game is going to be, it's going to be fun, lighthearted. It was just like, knowing the army, I was like, you forgot the strike and fade here. Do you want to strike and fade here? Strike and fade. Which is actually what's a strong part of the army is that you can take damage, but it doesn't matter. Like you can do whatever you want and you'll be gone within the turn.
Yeah, don't forget that rule. The whole army like revolves around that one.
Yeah.
So you actually reminded him that he forgot to basically peace out.
Yeah, or because he charged the Intensity with the Revenant Seekers, and I was like, do you want to stay there? I don't think you want to stay there. But it came down to, you'll never guess this one. You'll never guess the finale of my LVO finale. Scarbrand killed all the Kurnoff hunters. Then Scarbrand killed the rest of the army. Scarbrand just killed everything. The Insensate did not well. The Insensate didn't actually. I didn't roll only 6. I rolled 1 6 this tournament, and that was this game. But you played against Revenant Seekers. Yeah, it doesn't matter because if you do damage them, they heal all of it back.
I mean, between the ability to just bring back a model on their own, and the other unit can bring back a model, and then they have another spell to bring back models, and if you don't wipe out the unit, they will be back. And real quick, I had that experience at Nova too, where somebody ran a unit of 6 of the Spite Swarm Seekers, and Orgots would run up, kill 5 of them, and then he would be like boop 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 boop, and they're all back. And then he would run up, kill like 4 or 5 of them, and then they would just all regrow. He had nothing on his board left except for a full unit of those damn bugs. So I never underestimated them again.
Yeah, it's one of those armies where you look at the board and you're like, this is your whole army? Like, where are the points? Are you playing a 1K list army? And then all of a sudden they whip out these crazy ass rules and it's like, oh, there it is.
Which is how certain armies should be. Like just small, thin, elite, but just great tools to maneuver. That's exactly what you want to see out of Forest. Ambush
I
army.
think in that game, Taran, it was truly a difference between a scalpel in the Sylvaneth and a sledgehammer with the Khorne, right? Like it felt it's a very precise attacking the weak points in your army versus just Scarbrand just going blah.
To me, weirdly enough, Scarbrand is a scalpel because like he does deal massive amount of damage, but he can't run into you because he's
Yeah,
so
he's gotta
fragile,
be careful.
so weak, dice hit, whatever. So it's more of like he's to me the way I see him, he's your ping pong ball because of his movement abilities or like what is the game? I'm showing my youth.
Pong.
No, where you have like the two flappers and
Oh,
like
pinball?
pinball. He's a
Oh,
pinball. He just bounces off everything, kills them, and just bounces around. And then once he loses that momentum, he loses it hard. Like you stop Scarbrand, you stop Scarbrand. But when he's not, he's just on a rampage around the
Yeah.
map.
Yeah.
That I want to say thank you to Brian for being like my favorite. Sorry, no offense to everyone else. Favorite opponent of LVO. Amazing opponent. I had an amazing game with him. Like it shows like at the end of the day, yes, you can be very good at the game. Yes, you can want to win. It really matters how you're winning, and it matters like that you make these great connections with people because there's not a stereotype, but you wouldn't think of it from like a lot of this very nerdy game, but it is the most social game you can play. Half of the game is communication, half of the game is not getting to know your opponent, half of the game is asking your opponent what you can do, which is completely different than every other game. A lot of things you do, your opponent's not going to tell you anything. But at the end of the game, at the end of the day, the way this game operates is you have to play like you want to play honestly and win just based off your ability to understand the game. And that's how you really want to win. And like that's how I had great LVO. I very much enjoyed the players I played with. Like I didn't have anything terrible happen, which sadly sometimes happens in like a game like this. Is like people really want to win, and that drastically affects how you play.
There's this unwritten social contract that we all abide by to be good opponents, right? Some days you are, getting your teeth kicked, and it can be very hard to maintain positive energy and a positive mental attitude when that's happening. But that's part of the social contract because there are days when you are doing the teeth kicking, and
Yes.
you also need to be a good opponent when that happens and not rub it in and not be overbearing about it. And that can be difficult for some people. It's difficult for me, admittedly. It's something that I've had to really work on and try to force through and make sure that my opponent has a good game, win or loss or draw. So very well said, Taran. Congratulations on the 4-1, man. That's awesome. With
Yeah.
with Khorne, which is no secret that it is a very difficult army to win with, unless your name is Gareth Thomas. And I'm just kidding. It's difficult to win for him as well, but he's just a great player. But congratulations on the 4-1, and it sounds like he had 5 really good games despite that first stonehorning.
That was rough.
All right, Shane, Snoop Cat, how did your games go? First of all, what was your list, and how'd your games go?
yeah. Well, where that was just another 4-1 for Taran. This was exciting for me. I got my first 4-1 and
Congratulations, man.
been super working towards that one. But I took Tzeentch again, of course, like you guys both said. No surprise there. We're all dedicated to our factions. There's something about just playing the same faction for years. It's just like when I go to play another faction, like I'll have fun, but it's just something about just already knowing your rules and you could focus on like the actual rules of the game and like play against your opponent. There's just so much fun to be had with that.
Don't
I've
you
always
kind of
stuck to
feel like
this
you're
faction.
cheating? Don't you feel like you're kind of cheating a little bit too? You're like Tzeentch is
Sometimes
watching
like
you. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. My army rules are cracked. They've always been. I mean, they've always been like a top performer army. I didn't get into them because they were super broken. I really genuinely love the aesthetic and the lore and whatnot.
I
But
don't. Before you begin, I don't know if Tzeentch is necessarily like just on paper, just broken war scrolls, just insane abilities. I mean, pinks have gone in undulations of really good, but you have to be a really smart player to get the most out of the army. So
So I
Good.
do take pride in my ability in Tzeentch. I think the army does take a lot of effort and thought. I've just theory crafted and played this army every day
Very
for
much.
since I got into the hobby. I do want to talk about the new book on that note because the last book um, in 2.0 it had a ridiculous win rate and maybe at the start of 3.0, but the book relied on, like you said, bad war scrolls with really good allegiance abilities. Like as long as Destiny dice exist, Tzeentch will always be above a 50% win rate. It's when you're playing a dice game that comes down to luck, when you can guarantee things,
Yeah.
that's that's the best thing in the game. There's no contesting.
100%.
So the last book was bad war scrolls that cheat. This new book is pretty decent war scrolls that still kind of cheat. So we lost a lot of weird stuff like Kairos, losing his flat six summon a spawn, which was a broken spell, and people kind of got hung up on that. And when they saw the new book, they were like, I'm not a big fan. I kind of lost all my fun stuff. A lot of people jumped ship, but we got so many good war scrolls, and I'll talk about some of the things I brought to LVO in this list. Um, just everything functions, and that's why I really love this new book. Is now I don't just like now it's just not a bunch of shitters and a bird carrying those shitters. Now everyone like does its job. So we'll get into my list. So what I brought was Kairos, of course. Just like the last book, you're not going to leave home without him in too many lists. He's just one of the best casters in the game for really not that expensive for what he does. 440 for how much damage output he does and how much utility he has is always going to be insane.
Totally.
Um, One of the things so he lost his big thing, which was change of dice, which was busted. But this new Destiny dice generation he gets every turn is really strong, especially when you couple it with Master of Destiny, which is the grand strategy, because that's one of the best, easiest grand strategies in the game. It's like you can it's one of those ones where you can get tabled and still get it, um, which isn't always fun for the opponent, but is what it is. Um, But like I said, Destiny dice are one of the best battle traits in the game. So you want to make sure you're using them. So if you want to try to guarantee your grand strat and still use your fate dice, you're going to want to bring like Kairos.
What's the grand strat?
The grand strat is, yeah, for those who don't know, I should probably go through that. Not
No,
everyone
you're
plays
fine.
Tzeentch. It's going to be as long as you have fate dice equaling 9 at the end of the game, and I don't mean like hold all your 9 fate dice. I mean you could literally just have three threes at the end of the game, three useless little threes at the end of the game, and you just get your grand strat. You can get the game could be over, you could be losing, your army's tabled, and you still just get your grand strat.
It's
Um,
actually weirdly similar to the grand strategy that I was taking with Tend the Garden, where I just save 9 points, and at the end of the game, I'm just like, cool, got my grand
yeah, you don't
strat.
even need a hero. You just boop. There's my
Yeah,
grand strat.
yeah, totally.
Um,
Undeniable grand strategies are insanely powerful because you start the game at plus 3 points if your opponent
yeah,
doesn't have one as well.
pretty much. And that is like a valid uh, thought process to kind of go into the game with is, hey, this guy's grand strategy is just not as good as me. I can deny his. I'm already playing up 3 points. You can kind of play and strategize around that. You can like play more
I don't need to
conservatively.
be as aggressive. I can be a little
And
bit
I
more
can kind of
patient.
sit back, sit on the point. You have
Yeah.
to come into the Tzeentch death bubble, which is notorious. Like the Tzeentch death bubble is some of the most damaging shit in the game.
Yes.
Um, so it lets you play around kind of that strategy. But anyways, on to the actual heroes. Other than Kairos, we have Ogroid, who um, I think is the best general you could take in the book because he's the highest wound character in the book, and him going up from a 5-up save to a 4-up save makes him so tanky. So you sit him there. He doesn't really die unless you invest a lot into him. So what I do is I sit him in the back. He has Arcane Sacrifice, which extends his range, which is really strong. Kind of like a spell portal for free. Don't even have to cast it. He just has to sacrifice a wound, is what it is. But he heals it back anyways with his War Scroll, so it's like trade off is whatever. You take Arcane Tome, and then you give him Bolt of Tzeentch. So his War Scroll coupled with Bolt of Tzeentch is 2d6 spells, and that snipes a lot of key targets on the board. So like, I'll get into some of my games and what that was able to pick off, but it's really been doing stuff that I would struggle with normally if I didn't take that combo. Going
Totally.
into Fluxmaster, just a new great war scroll. He wasn't good in the last book, but he got a new one where I just get summoning points. So he's kind of an auto include in every list, especially because he has a once per battle kind of guarantee a spell with a +3. Lets you really get the summoning out that you need to, the clutch
Yeah.
ones. Going on to Shaman, he's oh, you know what I should mention before I get into the rest of this list? I guess I'll get through the heroes first. But Zongor Shaman is just a nice mobility mortal wizard because the mortal lore spells
Great.
in Tzeentch are really strong. Arcane Suggestion is, shut off a I could choose between three things. -1 to save, -1 to hit and wound, or Shut off CP, which is like kind of the broken common one. Uh, Magister, he's my little support hero. He's just like the cheapest foot hero in the back. He can be a 2-cast. He's the one that sits in the back and casts cogs so he can support everyone. And then he does Glimpse of the Future, which, like I said, it's the best. Fate dice are the best battle trade in the game. So you want to make sure you're pumping those out so you can just, use your best battle trade in the game. Now, going on to Battle Line, we'll just talk straight into Screamers. So this GHB, the book came out like halfway through the GHB. And, with every new book, you got to try to discover what works, what sticks, what good war scrolls. And I didn't own that many Screamers, so a lot of people, dumpster on TTS is it's not the greatest practice tool, but I think it's a great way to just roll dice and see what sticks, what's good. And I took just a random list of 18 Screamers. It was 2 blocks of 9. And man, those guys in this new book just do so much work. They make up so like for example, like one tournament, one game, Kairos miscasted like 2 phases, and those guys, and traditionally in the last book, that's like, oh, my damage. It's like, oh, great, GG. But these Screamers are just so consistently, they do as much damage as as just Kairos, really, if you take a block of 9, because now they not only just do it over the regular move. Oh yeah, it's 4-ups now. They do it on retreat, charge, so they're like doubling down. They almost tripling down because it goes 5 to 4-up retreat and charge and move. It's just,
So they
it's
used to
insane.
do they used to do mortals when they flew over a unit, but now
It used
when
to
they
just be
do
normal.
now it's any move.
Now it's any move, not piling. That would be
Very
a little much. But
very
any
very
move.
powerful.
And they just have so many wounds for so cheap. You take a block of 9, it's 27. They're -1 to hit because they're demons. And if they don't die, you can bring them back with Fold Reality. You just roll a dice, and that's how many that's how many models you bring back.
What are they? 14-inch move,
16-inch, and they just get everywhere they need to be. They literally do everything.
and they
So
score you battle
they
tactics
score you
and
tactics, they kill things, they add to that kind of death bubble playstyle where like some people treat screamers as trash, like a screen. I like to screen them with an actual screen, and then those guys will counter punch because I treat them as kind of a high value target.
do they still do extra damage against monsters?
No, so they took all the extra like counter thing. They don't do D3 on the fly by the wizards. They don't do D3 damage to monsters, but they went up. They went from 4s and 3s no rend to 3s and 3s 1 rend, and then just doing mortals to everything.
So
So
they're
just
just like ticking up the numbers on the war scrolls and
yeah.
really like dialing in those neat abilities.
So one thing I want to mention is I was scrambling for LVO because the teams list that I took for OTD teams. Shout out to that tournament. That was just a fantastic time. Um, it had those 18 screamer lists that I was really tinkering with that I really loved, and that was like this was my first 4-1, but teams I went 5-0, and but I don't really consider it as like a personal achievement because you can get kind of favorable pairings in teams, but we take those. But that was my best performing list was 18 screamers, and then the points came out before LVO, and just kind of screamers became a little bit too expensive to run 18, so was scrambling, didn't know what to do. Matt Noog, he last second told me, "Hey, you should take Corvus Cabal." Uh, I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that's a good way to get tactics, make up for those screamers." So
Totally.
I included some more heroes, just um,
So
included the
just run
Corvus.
run through your list real quick.
Yeah, I'll stop taking up a lot of time. So
No,
Kyric,
no, you're fine. I want to get a sense of like I'm trying to like piece the list
yeah, I
together.
just wanted to talk about screamers because screamers are just everything revolves around
Yeah, the
them.
sauce, huh?
All right, so we'll go through it. So Kyrics are going to be my standard screens. They're great, cheap fate point generators. They got some shooting. They just kind of do everything, kind of a jack of all trades. So they're kind of an auto include in every list. I love them, and beautiful model. I like my favorite infantry model. Of course, we have the big block of screamers. The Cabal, which was the last second inclusion, they came in clutch at LVO. They got me some much needed tactics that I just would not. There would have
Nice.
been some turns I couldn't score unless I had those guys. So, like Taran said, I mean, people are running around giving these guys for $90. They're just so high market value right now. And then we go into the endless spells, and Tzeentch got the nice new ability in this book where one gets to come out pregame. I like having both Simulacrum and the Sigil because it gives you options. Sometimes you need to go send it out, snipe a high, just concentrated damage onto a like a low wound hero. Sometimes you just need AOE, summon some spawns, like control an area. So it's nice having those options. And then of course you have cogs because I have so many casts. It's just the value
Totally.
with cogs is fantastic. But yeah, the whole list kind of revolves around the screamers who just really are fantastic hammer. So yeah, that's pretty much the list. To talk about my games,
Yeah, who'd you play
I
game one?
had a fantastic experience with players at LVO. I did not have a single player I was like salty about. Everyone was super pleasant. I can say the same thing about LVO last year too. I so far LVO has not been a miss for me.
There's something about being in Vegas where, like, yeah, even if you don't do as well as you expected, either game one or game five or the whole tournament, it's just like I'm still in Vegas,
Yeah,
right?
it's like
Like,
I
I'm
can't
not
complain.
like, yeah, you're not like, oh crap, well, I'm in like Irvine, so I guess I'll just go to some, bar and get a burger. You're like, you're in Vegas, like, let's have some fun. So everybody's just in good mood, and
Yeah,
so
you're
yeah,
there with friends. Like you said, it's not like an RTT or you just went out of your way on a Sunday to just get your ass beat.
yeah, totally, totally.
Um,
That's
so
what happens to me.
yeah, so going into first opponent, I got a man named Charles from the East Coast, I think. Um, didn't know anything about him, brand new player to me, hadn't met him, and that's the fun part about LVO that I'll mention is
Totally.
the different people because you'll always play the same people in your local area over and over, and it's fun, but you want to go like test your might against some of the what other nation or regions have to offer. So this guy was super pleasant. He played. Oh yeah, one thing I'll say is I was dreading Iron Blasters just like Taran was because I think Tzeentch and Khorne kind of play the same way. They have the kind of a death bubble where like Terran's is like a 20-inch death bubble of mortal wounds. Mine is like a ranged 18-inch death bubble. So if you come into that death bubble, like you're taking a ton of mortal wounds. But we don't like getting shot. We don't want to play that game. And I was scared of Iron Blasters because everyone's was bringing them, and I got paired into two Iron Blaster lists my first two games. But ended up taking both of them. The way the first game went was the guy started with telling me, "Hey, I'm here to have fun," and I was like, "Fantastic! I'm here to have fun too. I mean, I want to win, but let's have a good game." And it was great because it was like you said, you wanted a warm up game, get ready for LVO. So I
Get
I
the juices
I
flowing a
lucked
little
out,
bit.
and yeah, I lucked out with someone who just wanted to have fun. He wasn't trying too hard, and I got to warm up my rules, which was good because I was forgetting some rules, admittedly. Um, so he had ogres with iron blasters and a stonehorn, and traditionally I'm scared of those. But when you take an ogres list like that, where it's only like two iron blasters, no other ranged, and then you just take a stonehorn with he has some Mornfinger, like okay. Um, I feel like in the ogre's book you got to commit. Like if you're gonna go underguts, you're gonna take four iron blasters, and you're like that's your strategy. You're gonna go just shoot things off the board. His list was kind of a mix, jack of all trades kind of thing, and so the list didn't feel like it needed to do what it wanted to do. So he came into the death bubble, didn't kill a whole lot, and then Tzeentch just blows things up. But super super nice opponent. Was a great time. Going into the next one, I got Iron Blasters again. This time with three Iron Blasters. Bump the number up, and this time in underguts. So I was a little more scared with that -3 Ren coming my way to my little high value, low wound targets. Um, the way I won that one was I put a sigil out pregame. For those who don't know, it's you roll at the end of each movement phase. The sigil does 4 up D3 mortal wounds to everything around it, and I got kind of lucky. The sigil rolled all 4 ups on all his iron blasters and did the full 3 damage to all of them. And what I mentioned earlier in the list is my ogre the general has the extended range. So now he's kind of keeping up with the iron blasters in range. So he
Oh,
was
nice.
able to finish off the iron blasters. He just sat in a garrison in the back and just was like sniping people with spells. It was fantastic, and that's where the strength in that comes from. Is iron blasters traditionally outrange me, but if you can take that command trait on a hero that can do a lot of mortal wounds, you can finally deal with those targets.
Very strong.
So I was able to snipe out the Iron Blasters, which was really the only threat, because other than that, the list just had a bunch of Gleddons and maybe some Lead Belchers, and Lead Belchers don't do too much damage. So I was able to take that game. So ended with 2-0 there. And then round 3, I went into James Adams, or I think he goes by Jim, but one of the SoCal peeps, one of the super cool Brute Squad guys, the OGs. Massive respect for that squad. Love those guys. Uh, Jim got me at the GW San Diego tournament. He took the win with Flesh Eater Courts. I mean, that army terrifies me. I know they're a little outdated, but that army just brings so much volume into my like. I get kind of like trapped in a corner traditionally in that matchup, and it's scary.
Scary. It
It's so
really is scary.
scary. Like it's those kind of games where I'm like, how is this army a 40% win rate? I'm
I mean,
getting
not to cut you off, Shane, I forgot to mention this against my game with Asia, who also played Flesh Eater Courts. It's just like, oh, cool. I'm going to roll a bunch of dice on the jaws, and oh, look at your Glot took 30 mortal wounds.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, well,
Thanks. Yeah. Okay.
so
So
yeah,
it can be
Jim.
terrifying. Yeah, like a effect slot machine.
Yeah, they're terrifying, especially bounty hunters. Uh, so yeah, Jim took it against me last time, so I was out for blood this time. I was like, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
this revenge, Jim. Like I'm at LVO. I'm trying to get this 4-1. I'm coming after you, and he's a super cool dude, but he just made the mistake of coming into the death bubble. Like you got to be a little careful when you're measuring outside of Kairos, otherwise your engine of the gods will die. Uh, Other than that, he's a great player. Like I said, he took it last time, but I was out for blood this time. And usually I'm pretty lenient with, hey, you're in the death bubble, you want to maybe back up like an inch or two. But I'll admit, like I was out for blood. I'm trying to play well at LVO. I'm trying to go that 4-1-5-0. So I was like,
See, like, there's an important difference there between like what Taran did was just like, hey, like I think you might have forgot something, rethink that, rather than, hey, listen, here's the crux of and linchpin of my army, and you are about to fall into that. You might want. There's a little difference between explaining your strategy and then telling somebody not to fall into that, and then
yeah.
also being like, hey, I think you forgot something. So you should not feel any remorse
But I
for that.
usually am pretty lenient with like, hey, you're about to take 15 mortal wounds if you step an inch closer. Like,
This isn't
but
LVO. This is LVO
But
being
it's LVO, man. I'm not gonna do that here, especially since he got me last time. Sorry, Jim. So yeah, that's what happened. His engine moved up a little bit too far without measuring, and I blew that boy up.
totally.
Uh,
So you're 3-0 after
so I
game
ended the
one.
day 3-0, and went and partied it up. Not too hard. Didn't drink too much, but unfortunately, we stuck around at karaoke night a little too long, in my opinion. We were there until like 3 a.m.
Oh boy.
It was
Was it at the
it was a lot of
Palazzo?
fun. It
Is
was
it a
at this
club at the there's like a
This really
karaoke
small
club at
karaoke dive bar in kind of the
oh, okay.
middle of.
It was like a random one.
Yeah, it
Is it
was
Like
Dino's?
tiny. I think it
Dino's?
was.
maybe.
That
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
familiar.
Yeah, Dino's is like a really popular karaoke bar. I think it's like on Fremont Street or like downtown
It
Vegas, which is
it
off
was
the
an
strip.
interesting vibe walking in. There was, like, old school porn playing in the background. I was like, "Okay."
That's weird.
I was like,
No,
"Okay."
we ended up I ended up doing karaoke at there's this like karaoke bar at the second floor of the Palazzo, which I've never been to the Palazzo. It's a little bit further down the strip, but like it's like in like a mall inside the hotel and the casino. It's wild. It's super nice. And I ended up walking into a karaoke room. I was with my friend Sergio Ortiz from DC, and I walked in and it's a room full of just tough crowd doing karaoke. And I was like, do I need to
"Do I
leave right
belong
yeah,
here?
yeah, like, and they're like, holy shit, it's Matt Barker. They're like, and I was like, do I need to
Get
get up? They're like,
him!"
no, get in here. Yeah, no, those guys are so. We'll
Yeah,
talk
tough
about them
crowd's
in a little
fun.
bit because it was definitely pivotal to everybody's LVO experience. But so Shane, you're 3-0 after
I'm
day one.
3-0, and then I got 0 sleep, and
Oh
I
boy,
am a person who needs to sleep. I am not a high functioning. I'm not like Kyle who can, go 2 hours of sleep and still somehow go 4-1.
that man is nuts.
That man's wild. Um, so yeah, I wake up the next morning, not hungover, but with a headache. I probably just didn't drink enough water. I was feeling like shit. I'm like, okay, well, time to buckle up. Gotta get this bread. Um, I go down. I play into my fourth round against a really nice opponent from France. Super cool dude. He was playing Beast of Chaos. That was the first time I had played an international player, and man,
Oh
that
wow,
guy came to play. I respected everything about his play. It was the first time I played with a clock. He's like, "Hey, I hope you don't mind." Whips out a clock. I'm like, "Okay, well, I never played one." And he says, "That's fine. I'll take care of like the button, going back and forth." And he
making
did.
sure you make yeah, making
Yeah,
sure
he
like
was
your
on
name
top of it. He was not trying to like. I
good.
think it's just his own. That's just how he likes to play. He's a competitive player. He just wants the clock, like
Some
a true
people
chess
use the
player.
clock not as like a check on their opponent, but as an accountability to their own selves.
Yeah, and I think that's what it was. It was either that or he just enjoys the competitive nature of a clock. And I actually, for the first time, it was the first time like playing with one, but I really enjoyed it. I was like, hey, I feel like I'm on top of my rules. I feel like I'm like, not ADDing out, like thinking about something else other than the game. Like the
Totally.
full 2 hours of the game was I'm playing this game. I'm trying to win. Like it was a cool experience.
I
So
think
I don't have a clock.
I think I saw that guy play, and it was 100% like what you said. It was like to just keep semi accountability and to keep himself going, and I think that's a great like how the clock should be seen. It's not like
Yeah.
you want to time the person out because that's not how you want your game to be. So I saw him play and be like, the clock was running out, but there's also like rules things going on. Like it was turn 5. He's like, who cares? Think it out, right? and that's what the clock should be. I think the clock is a very nice tool.
Yeah, like the clock can get controversial. Like one of my buddies, he got clocked at a tournament somewhere. And it was because the person who played him like complained about him last round. And when it gets like that, I mean, the clock is kind of drama and it's
It's
whatever. But
another tool. It's like another tool to get into your opponent's head, and that's
yeah,
where the
you
chess
don't want to use
clock.
it like that.
Yeah, and that's where the chess clock really does get like sort of a bad name. Oh, you're one of those players, but I would see it as a personal accountability tool. So I understand where he's
Yeah,
coming
so this
from.
guy was the man from France was like super classy about it. It was great
Awesome,
experience.
awesome.
And he took BOC with some Dragon Ogres, some uh, Enlightened. He kind of he had an Incarnate who unfortunately I took him down a level, but then my one misplay that game was I left my sigil out, which is not a big casting value. It's casting value 6, and then he ate it up like barely. He rolled a 6 at the
Oof,
+1. And
love it.
then it was a close game. It was tied. It was Realm Stone, so it was a tied game when the objective split. But I was just surrounded by Dragon Ogres on one side, an Incarnate who just re-leveled up in the middle, and then some Zengor Enlightened over here. And had I freed up my Screamers who were locked down by like one Dragon Ogre with only 2 wounds left, I could have. Screamers would blow up a group of Enlightened like in their face like it was nothing. Screamers are just put out so many dice. But I just between five damage spells I had, I just needed to do 2 wounds to this one Dragon Ogre with 2 wounds left, and I shit you not, I've never seen a more value -1 to cast. So the Incarnate, if you guys don't know, like get the aura is different from the Domination aura. The -1 to casting for wizards around is a little bit bigger, and every single wizard was barely within like an inch. And all my damage spells that I casted to try to free up my Screamers on that Dragon Ogre are casting value 7. I rolled 6 6s in a row. I had a +1, and he had a -1, and I rolled just barely what I needed not to do
Oh man,
6 times in a row, and he was like, "Yeah," and I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, bro, I just need to do 1 spell. Like, I'm Tzeentch. Why is my spells not going off?"
If you would have got that last one off, you would have rolled the 1 for the D6 or whatever it was.
Probably. I
Because
mean,
yeah,
the dice don't lie. I should have just Destiny diced it at that point, but I was needed my Grand Strat, and I was running low at that point.
totally.
Um, but I was just thinking, like, I just need 1 spell to go off out of these 6. Like, it's gonna happen. I don't need Destiny dice to cheat my way through this. Come on. Is what it is. Fantastic opponent. I don't feel bad about that loss at all because I mean, number one, BOC is a very good army. Can't feel bad about losing to BOC, but the player himself was a really
Class. And
impressive player, and he got to top 8, so I'm
yeah, I
perfectly
watched
justified with that.
I watched him play a few times, and he was there for the business. Like
Yeah,
there was no party in the back. It was business in the front, business in the
no,
back.
he flew across the world for a reason, and
Totally. And I think he's part of the French Worlds team as well.
I believe it. I would have if you would have told me he was like the best player in France, I would have believed it. I thought he was great. Um, anyways, I got through those first few games pretty quick in explanation because I want to talk about my last game. My last game was with the one and only Joe Cryer,
Oh man.
who is one of the OG top Tzeentches, alongside Caleb. Maybe not. Caleb probably has a little bit higher results, but I mean, no, Joe was actually like number 1 at one point, right?
I think he was. I played like in and around and with at the table with Joe for many many years. Pretty much the start of my Age of Sigmar career in DC. So he would always come to Novas and Nova Opens and the big tournaments. So he has been playing Warhammer forever. He's another guy who's devoted to his Chaos faction. He's a Tzeentch guy. Whether he's playing Beast of Chaos or Tzeentch,
Yeah, he's
he's
a
always got
chaos
that
follower
Tzeentch
just
spin
like
on it.
us.
Yeah.
Ace
And
chaos.
so yeah, totally. So he's a great dude. If you haven't met him, go up and say hi. He's a little shy. He's not going to come up and say hi to you if he doesn't know you, but he's a great dude. So
No, it was one of my favorite games because and I told him that ahead of time. I said, hey, win or lose, I know you're one of the OG guys. I have a lot of respect for players like you. Like, let's have a good time
that's
and
awesome,
let's
dude.
talk some Tzeentch. Um, so going into that round though, I was a little bummed on my last loss, and I was not feeling good. I had a heavy lunch. I was like, I almost stayed up in my hotel room. I'm like, I'm chilling. I don't really want to play this round 5. I almost didn't show up. Especially when I saw the pairing because I saw that it was the Tzeentch Ditto, and I have been dreading that mirror matchup since I started playing the army. Like in my head, it just sounds miserable. It just like there's probably just too much shit going on. It probably just comes down to whoever takes second. Just didn't sound good on paper, but I got to tell you, that was one of my favorite games of Warhammer I've ever played. It was
So glad to hear that.
so wild. The Tzeentch mirror matchup has so many things going on that I had like 10, 15 people come by throughout the game just like, "What's happening in this game? Like, who's winning?" Like, there's like 20 chaos spawns on the board. Things are getting blown up. There's summons everywhere. It was just wild. It was some of the most galaxy brain Warhammer I've ever experienced.
So I played on a couple of tables down from you in the same row, and we were all the way toward the front of the hall. And so it wasn't, and so I took this great photo of you. I don't know if I shared it, but
I
like
did. I
you,
saw it. It was a good
yeah,
one.
you're like knuckle down on the table, just like intensely staring. And then Joe has got this like very chess-like contemplative look, and just the intent, like it just is one of those photos that you can just feel the intensity seeping out of it. So it was, I looked over and I was like Crier versus Shane, like that is a matchup I
It was
want to hear
old blood
about.
versus new blood, and
Yeah,
one thing I
totally.
also want to mention is like, yeah, like you said, he's dedicated to his faction. He had some sweet Tzeentch tattoos, which I'm looking to get some Tzeentch tattoos because like they're my jam. They're my boys.
Totally.
Um, he was a super cool opponent. We were laughing throughout the whole game. He got me on to calling Kyrics with the glaives their bonk sticks. I was like, all right, we're gonna bonk each other, and it was great. It was just fun stuff like that. But it was still very serious because there is a little bit of pride at stake with the when you do a mirror
Totally.
matchup.
Totally.
Uh, so the way the game went is his list was a big block where mine was a big block of screamers. He was a big block of Kyrics, and I love Kyrics. I think they're fantastic. I think a big block has of 30 has a lot of play, but the way the game went down was he won the roll off for attacker defender, so he wants turn choice. Um and he actually took first, which is very interesting because I have probably never taken first in this, at least in this new book,
Mhm.
when I have turn choice, because I want things to come in. I always like to deploy near objectives so that if they take first, you got to come score objectives. You're going to be in that death bubble that I kept talking about. But his idea was, and it was a sound idea. It was interesting. Kyrics have an ability that not a whole lot of people know about or remember, but they have little vultures that go and hunt you down. And on 4-up mortal wounds, when you cast a spell, you take a 4-up mortal wound. We had 3 units, and he just ran them up the board to get in range of my wizards. And every time I casted a spell, I was taking like 3 4-up mortal wounds, and it was. But I don't think it was. It didn't really work out for him because the math doesn't check out. Because every time I cast a spell, I'm doing like 6 mortal wounds, and he's
So
doing
you're doing 5,
1.5,
6 mortal wounds, and you're taking
and,
one of
and I'm taking like 1 or 2 like on different units, whereas I'm like focus firing like 1 unit and blowing it up. Like, so I don't think it worked out all that well, but it was an
I can
interesting
understand
strategy.
I can understand his logic
Yeah,
though.
absolutely. No, it was a cool play, and it could have absolutely worked, like killed some heroes, but probably just a dice thing. He also took first and miscasted, so we both had auto unbinds. We both had like kind of the same sub faction. It was interesting. I auto unbounded his cogs because I was like, okay,
Smart.
he has like 6 casts. Surely he's gonna miss some of these, so like just let cogs go or unbind cogs, and he's just gonna miss, and I don't even have to worry about rolling unbinds. Which is what happened was Kairos miscasted spell portal, so he couldn't do his turn one big like summoning spell off the
Ouch.
Fluxmaster. The funniest thing about that game was the pregame endless spell summons that I mentioned with the sigil. The sigil is the one where like you have an AoE like 4-up D3 mortal wound summon spawns. We
Mhm.
both just pre-gamed. They're undispellable. Like they literally like pass each other. Like one's in my like his is in my territory, mine is his, and they're undispellable until battle round 2. And all of a sudden, everything is just taking. There's probably like 30 mortal wounds dealt from that spell alone. And there were just spawns everywhere. It was just so funny. Things were getting locked up. It was wild. Um, but I think I won the prize, so I got a little bit of a nice double turn. Took some objectives, wiped some things. The Screamers actually underperformed that game. Chad Kyrix, man, they tanked it out. I think all their glaives hit. They do 2 damage on those glaives. They
Yeah.
wrecked my Screamers. Oh no, actually I didn't win Prio. He won Prio doubled so that he could kill. Oh no. I won Prio and actually gave it to him. That's right, because I wasn't gonna do anything with the turn.
So this was going into turn 2.
Going into turn 2, I won
Okay.
Prio and gave it to him because I asked him. There was an interesting interaction. So with Kairos, his new war scroll, he can steal an endless spell when he unbinds it. But we both had Kairoses, right? So if I were to go and uh, get out the chicken head spell. and he unbinds it, he would take it back. But I'm like, okay, well, it's on the board. You get to if I were to take it back, it would just be then his starter hero phase, and he would just take it back again in the same turn, and that's just, and there's no FAQ on that, so like that's how it works, right? So like it's like I steal it, and then he steals it in the same turn. It's like why bother? So I gave it to him so that I could have the second starter hero phase and just take it back.
Totally.
Just little stuff like that made the Tzeentch mirror matchup just so big, like galaxy brain. I was like, okay, you got to make like these really weird decisions. I ended up just taking the game on purely on objectives and kind of tabling his army, even though I missed some tactics. I wasn't playing too well in the secondaries, but
Just to remind everybody, this is on Nidus Paths.
yeah, it's on Nidus Pass, so kind of a spread out like wild
Yeah,
plan with teleports and
very spread
everything.
out. I don't really like those ones, but
Fantastic, thoughtful player. I think the reason I took it was because I stuck to the standard plan of summoning just blues on an objective because I know Tzeentch doesn't want to deal with mass wounds. They want to be able to focus down elite stuff. If like Kairos has to put a bunch of spells into 20 wounds of blue, he's not a happy lad.
it's low
Whereas
quality damage.
low
Output, right?
qual, it's high. Well, it's high quality damage output, but it's not a lot of damage output.
It's
You're
like
going into
sniping.
you're going into a low quality target with high
Right.
quality damage. Is what I
Exactly.
mean.
Yeah. Exactly. Because Tzeentch wants to be able to focus down high elite units. They don't want to deal with like BOC where there's like a ton of just trash on the board. Uh, but
Shout out
yeah,
to
I
the
think
guy.
I just was able to. Yeah. So I was able to just sit blues on objectives and just kind of sit there and be like, okay, eventually, like I'm going to win off objectives. And where I summoned blues, he summoned flamers, and I think he was still on that 2.0 high because I know flamers were super good in the last edition. But
Pretty good.
flamers in this book, man, I think they're kind of the worst unit in the game. I mean, they did what they kind of needed to do. They killed some Kairos when he summoned them, but then those flamers aren't on the objective, and they're not, doing what needs to be done, which is, capturing objectives.
Right.
But all in all, it was a super fun game. A lot of laughs, a lot of high um, high level thinking. It was a great way. I couldn't have been more happy for that to be my like 4-1 capstone game.
You kind of have to
Um,
like beat the best to be the best sort of
Right. So
situation.
like I said, like at the start of the game, I said, "Hey man, I got major respect for like you OGs. You're dedicated to the faction. I'm a new guy. I'm trying to figure this thing out, and let's just have a good game. And win or lose, the respect is there."
And like I said, Joe Cryer is a dude who is maybe like a little bit shy on the upfront. Like he's not going to go out of his way to oh, dude, like it's nice to meet you. Like, who are you? What's your name? What's your story? But like when you like sit at a table from him across the table and you talk to him and you
Yeah, if you
kind
get
of
the vibe flowing, he was like
yeah,
super cool, man. I had it was a
exactly.
really good time, and that was a great capstone game. Like I said, all my LVO games were great opponents, super fun.
That's awesome.
Wouldn't have it any other way. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was my
4-1,
experience.
man. Congrats on the 4-1, both of you, really, honestly. Like I said, we started with the worst and ended with the best of the guests here. So I went 3-1-1, and my two guests here went 4-1. So congrats to both of you. You know, like you said, Shane, this event draws people from all over the world, and that's both interesting and because you could get the best player from some worlds team, or you could get somebody who's there just to roll dice, drink beer, and scream their face off,
Yeah,
right?
and I got
Like
the best order of it. I went from like first day was everyone was, playing for fun and also playing to win, but we're all here for a good time. And then last day was like everyone the opponents I got, they were there to play.
you guys are a little younger than me. I feel like by game 5, I was very fatigued. Not like obviously like physically, like physical exertion, but like the mental like calculations, like Zach
Oh,
Galifianakis and Hangover going through your mind and trying to do
yeah,
everything.
dude,
Like,
no, I'm with you. I was so fatigued that
I,
round 5. I'm so surprised I took it.
what
I
was
get,
that, Tanner?
I very fatigued too. Even after the first game, like I think there's a sweet spot. I actually start fatigued and end fatigued, but there's like a sweet spot in the middle where I'm like, I'm ready. If anyone wants to come at me game 3, this is the game to lose. Maybe game 2. I think end of day 1, but game 2, I'm an animal. Game 2.
Yeah, yeah. You
Yeah, I
need
mean
a
after
little bit of warm up to get going,
You
right?
you
Like,
need turn 1. You need the game 1, and sometimes it's unfortunate because it's like turn 1. You're like, can you just give me someone easy so I don't have to actually think?
right,
And then,
right.
like,
yeah, I
I need
mean
my warm up. We need to have LVO warm up games.
yeah. Well, that's what war gaming or war room gaming was it? that was a nice warm up party the day before.
Yeah,
But yeah, I was so exhausted even just after day one. I mean, we went to that karaoke dive bar till 3 a.m. and I think at one point I was taking a nap in that loud bar. I was
yeah.
like in the corner just like sleeping with my hands in my pockets. You got to watch yourself in Vegas. But I was like, I think I took a nap.
That's so funny. Oh my god. Well, yeah, like I think one of my biggest problems maybe is the fact that like it's not like fatigue over like 5 games, but like I'll like show up to the table and anybody who's met me in real life or maybe even can get a glimpse of it from this podcast, I have a little bit of sometimes like golden retriever energy, like beast of Nurgle energy, right? Like I just like run up to somebody and I'm like,
Run in
"What's
charge,
up,
run in
man?"
charge, run in
Yeah,
charge.
yeah, yeah. Like, what's up? How's it going? Like, here's my name's Matthew, and here's my life story, and like, and like I kind of like tire myself out within the first like maybe half an hour, 45 minutes of the round because I'm just like so pumped. And then yeah, and then I kind of like mellow back down and then I get a little break and then it's like, oh, a new friend, what's up?
Yeah, I think the most Barker thing I've ever seen was I came over to your table with Alex Gonzalez, and you were like talking with people, like having a grand old time, and Alex is trying to like focus on the game. He's like, "Come on, dude, like let's go."
Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm like, I'm sorry, I got new friends here. Like, yeah, it was good. It was good. It was a good time. I was a funny moment in that game where I was playing Alex and like so Sergio Ortiz is a great dude. He's a former Crusader, is now in Tough Crowd, and I played so much Warhammer with Sergio, whether it's tournaments or just showing up at the hobby night at our local store when I was in DC. I played so much Warhammer against Sergio, and we were good friends. He came over, and it was like kind of a pivotal priority role between me and Alex, like basically where my Blight Kings were going to be able to clear everything, or the Grave Guard were going to be able to clear the Blight Kings. And I won the prio, and Sergio just looked at me and just gave me the look, and then walked away. And we both kind of knew what like he could kind of read the field and see that. So I was like, all right, I definitely need to focus because if I don't take advantage of this like death blow, then Alex is going to make me pay. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, he was getting a little. He was like, "Come on, focus, bud, focus," and I was like,
let's
"Ah, okay,
go,
okay,
buddy.
yeah, yeah, yeah."
What LVO?
So, what's up?
One thing about LVO too is like if you finish a game early or just lose, just watching games is so fun. Whether you're watching two people having like a blast, like drinking, throwing dice, or watching like you could watch the finals, which some people didn't treat like the finals. People were like screaming, but it was cool to just see that energy. Like watching Shane's game, against like I finished my game and I walked over and all I see are like 6 spawns on each side, and then Kairos versus Kairos in the middle
Yeah,
fighting each other.
the best way to I finished. So the final dice I rolled to get the 4-1 and win the game at LVO was a tactic. I just had to kill a monster with none of wounds. It's a Tzeentch tactic, and I with one attack left, or one save roll left, it was Kairos versus Kairos, a little cockfight match,
Wow.
in melee. Like you never see that, and it was the
Right.
final dice rolled at LVO. It was the
Deep
most
in the
hyped thing
center
ever.
before.
Oh, that sounds so base. That sounds so much fun. Like, yeah, like not only is it a mirror match, but it's Kairos v Kairos. It's like in like the old school Super Nintendo. I'm aging myself, but there was like a bug where you could end up playing like this WWE wrestling match, and it was like Doink the Clown, and Doink the Clown versus Doink the
Like the
Clown.
cloud.
Yeah, yeah. So it was like Kairos v Kairos, and you're not doing like magic like this like South Park like wizard like no 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 like no, you're like smacking each other with this
With
ancient
this
stick.
giant 3-inch range stick.
Yeah, that sounds so great. He like
Like they're
pin your
both
Kairos
-1 to hit because they're both like Tzeentch,
yeah,
like
yeah,
manipulative
big
guys.
flappy birds. That's so great, man. I'm glad you guys had such a great time, both in like your games and then the results, but also the opponents being like really high quality opponents. That's super awesome. So we're kind of winding down here at the end of our show, but there's something I think that's really interesting because LVO was the last event for the old General's Handbook for season 1. By the way, I know GW might not be watching, maybe they are. Please stop calling it season 1, season 2. Let's just go back to like this edition or like this General's Handbook whatever year, just this whole season 1 season because it's not season 1. It's like season what, like 4 or
Like
5?
2023 season 2.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, but anyway, it was the last edition. Bounty hunters can sayonara, see you later, never
They
come back,
can never
please.
come back for all I care, dude. I can finally
Um,
play my pinks again.
yeah, I can finally the Blight Kings can come out. So, so that was really interesting. It was old or new points, old book, right? But now, and I was like tunnel vision, not trying to look at all these leaks and like all the things and all the new toys and the
That was my
GC.
problem. Is I got a little taste of the new GHB before LVO, and all I wanted to do was play the new GHB. But I'm like, all right, I gotta like buckle down
You
and
gotta
practice
buckle
this
down,
one.
right? I had to tunnel it all out because I was gonna just dive in. But now that we are unfettered, Taran, we are unfettered. We have and our rage knows no bounds.
I
We
am
can
a
now
5-star man.
we can focus on the new GHB. So what I want to do is I'd like to go around between you guys and kind of I get if whatever faction you're kind of picking up, or if you want to talk the faction you played, like just something that you're looking forward to, or like how your chosen faction is going to play in the new book. Like nothing super crazy like a list or anything like that, but just sort of like a general ethos of how you see your chosen faction, whatever you're going to play, how that's going to perform. Taran, why don't we start with you?
So I quite liked the LVO GHB, partially because I didn't never had someone to be bounty hunted. I don't
Right.
have any like actual inventory, so going to this new one, it's like it, it's a lot more interactions, and looking at Galatian champions, there's a lot of very viable Galatian champions, and it's a lot more fun and it's a lot more brawly. You look at the average, like where the objectives are, a lot of them are closer to the middle, and a lot of it is you took a okay. If you played the GHB before this and before this one, you could get battle tactics without doing anything.
Yes.
All of them.
Yes.
This GHB, the LVO one, it was kind of like that, but you had like kind of like it, kind of not. This new GHB
Put your list towards it.
is you have to actually think, how am I actually going to get my battle tactics? Because a lot of time you have to be killing something turn one or have book tactics. So I don't think I'm going to be playing Khorne for this next, like, I don't know, 2 months at this point. And
Right.
hopefully they come out, new book comes out. For the next 2 months, I just want to play like a bunch of different things. I have Slave Ness, Skaven, and I know you said not to talk about builds, but there's some stupid fun things like taking the Exalted Hero, because as a Galatian champion, and they're I think 3.0, all the tomes have done a great job at making almost everything usable,
Yes.
and a lot of things just super fun to use. Like, sure, this list isn't great, but it's like, say, the Exalted Champions, you just have to roll in the Eye of the Gods. It's just something so fun to do. So I'm really excited to look at this GHB and have more things happen. And I think they've made things a little bit less uninteractive going forward. So I'm just excited to play it, see how it plays.
So you're really excited about the prospect of not having to just hold hands and run and get your battle tactic, or to
Against the
like,
odds.
yeah, exactly. Against the odds of 100% chance of success.
Yeah.
You're excited about having to
Against the
actually,
100%.
yeah, you're the Phil Collins battle tactic. Again, dating myself with the younger kids here, but no, but like you're excited about having to actually use your toys to actually go out and do things to secure battle tactics.
Um, there's like genuinely only one thing that I see. It's like even a slight problem is that new battle tactics are a little too easy. So you have these books that are just so far behind.
Right.
Where they
Yeah.
you have the battle tactics, and then you have some like maybe even like Tzeentch, where it's like
We're not
you just
gonna
get
open up this can of worms. If you want to go check out that debate, just open up any random Warhammer Twitter thread and it's all over there. It's there.
right. I'm ready.
All right, Shane. What about you?
Things I am excited for in the new GHB. One thing is I am already super impressed with the battle plan layouts. I think they're super fun and interactive. Really interesting deployment zones. There's one where it's like an L shape, like one kind of sneaks into like the other player's territory, but then it does the
Yeah.
same thing for theirs and the other. I can't remember the names yet. I don't have them memorized yet, but battle plans are really interesting and fun so
The
far.
position over power, I think it might be.
It might be it's the one with the home and like yeah, you have like a home objective and like the
Right,
side.
right. And they're
That one's
all
fun.
but you have the long board edge across the bottom, and it just pokes up
Yeah, it
into
pokes
the
up. And then you got like just one in the middle that you get an extra point if you got a GC like T posing in the
Totally,
middle.
totally.
That's fun. Second thing I'm excited for is I I'm excited for Magic. Magic sniping, like that's Tzeentch's specialty. We get to like
100%.
poke down a dude at range, and because you kind of need some GCs for some battle tactics. There's actually
Yes,
like half the battle tactics you need GCs.
yes.
And if you could snipe those out with like some Tzeentch spell portals, or like I said, the Ogreade 27-inch range command trait, that's going to be strong. So I'm looking forward to that. I have a few lists where it's just all in on sniping. I like have spell portal tunnel master with like Tusk Helm on the Ogreade where I can guarantee fate dice do ogre charges, just stuff like that. It's gonna be really tricky and fun to build lists. And then the next thing I'm excited for is like I don't know, man. I'm kind of having fun with this new BOC book. Kind of been killing it.
Pretty fun.
You have been on test games, and
I've been running test games with it everywhere. I think Gorgons have always been one of the coolest designed looking monsters with the forearms. I think they're like S tier in the book. So that unit is just such a blast to play. I smile every time I'm rolling dice with that thing. So yeah, excited for new book, excited for new tactics, excited for just battle plans. Yeah, I think it's
awesome.
gonna be fun.
I am definitely excited about. So I'm always looking at the new season or the new GHB through a Nurgle lens. I think I'll continue to play them, although I'm very excited about the prospect of Caradron Overlords getting a new book. That's my little side
Guilty
project.
pleasure.
Yeah, I
You're
like.
supposed to be a chaos player, Barker.
Well, I like what I really like it because it offers me like a palate cleanser in every sense of the word. Not only
It
the
is like the
aesthetics of the
opposite of
models,
Nurgle, right?
yeah, the aesthetics of the models, but also the play style, and it kind of makes me step out of my comfort zone where I can't rely on my 5 up ward and my 5 wound apiece models or my 20 wound apiece
You
centerpiece
got to
model.
actually think about your movement.
Yeah, so I have to be so I really like that. So I'm excited to see what that book is like. But so looking at this through primarily a Nurgle lens, I actually don't think there's a lot of great Galatian champion options for starting army for Nurgle. You have the Lord of Plagues and the Lord of Blights. The Lord of Blights gives out a kind of a crappy shooting attack, but he's got a 3 up save, which is nice, so he's like tough. And the Lord of Plagues gives an okay buff. He can give a unit of Blight Kings wholly within 12 +1 attack, but they have 5 attacks apiece with Ren 1 damage, so you're just giving them more low to mid quality attack. So it's not really it's a plus what? It's like a plus 15% attacks per Blight King. So it's like not that if they had 1 attack a piece that did like big damage, then that would be a great buff. But so it's like kind of a mediocre buff. You have the demon heroes, the Herald, who's just a caster. Um, so to me, I look at it as kind of like a point tax. I have to spend 150 points for one of these heroes because I kind of need a starting GC. I'm looking at the Plague Priest, who's like a nice 100-point GC that I can ally in or coalition in. And because I got triggered by not having a priest on the board in one of my games. So,
At least you have a
having,
priest in your book.
no priest.
Oh, you don't? Oh, you're allying someone?
Yeah, so like it would just be the Plague Priest from
Oh,
Pestilence.
plague. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, and having
I
another
heard plague and
heal.
was like just thought it was an early and like brain farted.
No, no worse. No, so having another heal on top of my innate heal is interesting. Or curse as a defensive option, but so I'm looking at it kind of like I have to spend 150 points on a unit that I otherwise probably wouldn't, but it opens up interesting options. There's this really neat synergy, I think, where the Poxbringer has the ability to take this spell Favored Poxes, which is a 14-inch spell, and you target an enemy unit, and they're -1 to hit, wound, and save. But you can't move or cast a spell or pile in or fight or do anything, or the effect wears off. But if you don't do any of these things, it's just on until the unit's dead. And so you give him Tunnel Master, so you cast the spell and then you just Tunnel Master out, and that's a setup. And because the fact says that it doesn't count as moving, so that unit is just debuffed infinitely, and I'm just like on the other side of the board on an objective or something. That's kind of interesting. But other than that, I really like Blight Kings in this edition, which is great because I have a
I
lot of
just
them.
think they're neat.
Yeah, I just think they're neat. And I don't have to worry about bounty hunters anymore. The Glotkin is amazing, so I'll probably continue to play with him and the outer. And he dropped 50
Yeah, I
points.
saw that. I saw he was in the 600 bracket like midway, and I was when you were showing your list, and I was like, wait, that dude's
Yeah,
kind of cheap now.
He's 650. It's like a 9% drop in points. So it's really spicy. So I'm excited to try that. So I'm looking at the GCs as like initially thinking of it as a tax, but I'm sure I'll come around to it. There'll be some like fun combos that I'll piece out together. But and then yeah, looking forward to the KO book coming out in the spring. We're right around the 2 hour mark. Did you guys want to have any final thoughts? Anything you want to one thing I do want to shamelessly plug is the Old Town Throwdown Summer Smash. If you have stuck it out with us through this great talk, and you like the content, you've interacted maybe with Tom on Twitter through his Old Town Throwdown account, or any of the SoCal guys,
If
I
you've
will
been
tell you.
insulted by Tom on his Twitter account.
Yeah, don't worry. He hates everybody equally. I will say that the Old Town Throw. I've been playing in this hobby for about 22 years, and I've been playing Age of Sigmar since before there were points in a General's Handbook. And I have never been to such a smoothly run or fun atmosphered event than the Old Town Throwdowns. And that carried over to Vegas because Tom was the head judge and we used his pack that you can find on oldtownthrowdown.com. So if you are looking for a fun time, you should absolutely search on Best Coast Pairings for the Old Town Throwdown Summer Smash, which is happening, I believe, August 13th. There are people flying in from international for this thing. It's going to be at a great venue with lots to do, and absolutely either get in contact with Tom on Twitter at Old Town Throwdown, or just search on Best Coast Pairings, and you should be able to find it. But with that said,
Yeah.
final thoughts from both of you, Taran.
And like, if you can't make that, there's so many, like Thomas put so much effort, so much love like into growing this community, and there's so many more Old Town Throwdowns you can go to. We just had a teams event, which was super fun. We had like Team America come down. Shane and I won. Shameless plug right there.
Yeah,
The Golden Nougats.
great name.
So even if you can't make that, just keep. If you even have the ability to just check out this wonderfully managed tournament, which you can see just as like Thomas put so much work in to grow like this community in SoCal up almost by himself, and like Scott, they just worked really hard on this. So if you ever have the chance, it's just wonderful. There's wonderful people in SoCal, and I really do actually just recommend checking it out, or any Old Town Throwdown event you can go to.
Very nice. Shane, final thoughts.
No, I kind of got everything out I wanted to say. Shout out to my Age of Ligmar boys, though. Best
Oh,
performers at LVO. We had a good four of
yeah.
us, Taran included.
Really carrying the SoCal Eternals to glory. Real like
Yeah.
on your backs.
Right after, Matt gets his Masters win in SoCal. I mean, just taking over.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it.
Sorry, from the
Just
bottom.
shout out to the crew there. So I know I'm wearing my Nurgle King shirt, but shout out to so I was chasing Emma Mengels for the ITC Nurgle crown. I needed a really solid. I think if I would have won my last game at 4-0-1, I might have stolen it from her because I was only like 50 points short. But shout out to Emma for being able to unseat the Nurgle King. I was the ITC Nurgle champion for the last 2 years in a row, and man, she killed it the first half of the year. I know she's taken a little hiatus from AOS. I really hope she comes back because her presence will be sorely missed at events. There's no denying when she's at an event. So shout out to her for still winning the ITC top ranked Nurgle crown, and I guess I'll leave everybody with glory to the grandfather.
Nah, glory to the great bird in the sky.